Oh, it's not Giha? Oh, excuse me. My apologies. It's okay. Giha.
So we have that side.
On Sports Radio 810 WH.
Alright, so we're gonna just leave them be. Yeah, and y'all switch.
All right, a Wednesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. We've got you for the next 4 hours, day number 3 here in New Orleans, Super Bowl 59. And a jam-packed show ahead of us, we believe. A jam-packed show will be ahead of us in our coverage presented by here on Sports Radio 810 WHB each and every day.
No, that's
presented by
yeah,
Extended Shamrock Roofing and Construction, the Big Biscuit and Subaru of Olathe. We will talk with Cynthia Freeland coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, as we typically do on a Wednesday. So we'll talk with our NFL Network analytics expert. We'll hang out with her and get her thoughts on this matchup, really dive into the details and break down this game, how she sees it coming together, the mismatches that may be there in the Eagles' favor, the mismatches that may be there in the Chiefs' favor. That comes up an hour from now. And then different guests along the way that we are expected to talk to. That includes, coming up later on this hour, Rich Gannon. We'll talk with him, former Kansas City Chief, NFL MVP, led his team to a Super Bowl. We'll get his thoughts on this Chiefs dynasty and what he sees from this team, what he sees from Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback. So we'll talk with Rich Gannon, Chris Canny from Unsportsmanlike in the morning on ESPN Radio. We'll get his thoughts on this matchup. We'll hang out, expected to hang out with Michelle Beadle, Bernie Kosar, a guy who did play in a Super Bowl, literally played in a Super Bowl because he took the final snap of that Cowboys-Bills Super Bowl, the back-to-back of the Bills when they won 3 of 4. It was the second of those 3 Super Bowls in which Bernie Kosar came on for an injured Troy Aikman a couple times that year, and they let Bernie Kosar go out there and take the final snap and take the knee to be in the Super Bowl. So we'll talk to him about his career and, you know, a tortured fan base in Cleveland, but also, you know, Chiefs fans. I know that they had been to a Super Bowl in Super Bowl IV, but it was so long until this took place, which is why a lot of people in their conspiracy theories can stick it. And, you know, the loser, you know, Boston guy who's just trying to make a name for himself because he's been fired twice in the last year. Shocking. I'm surprised that he's been fired twice in the last year. I wonder why. Like losers like that, you know, can, you know, go and pound sand and go play in traffic, really. There's plenty of traffic to go do that. But we'll talk with, speaking of that, Bernie Kosar. We'll talk with Scott Grant, with one. Supposed to talk with Sam Monson, pro football, excuse me.
Back maybe on the side, like
I'm sure I don't do that in the interview, but the 33rd team and his podcast with Steve Palazzolo. Kenny Checks from NFL Network, Carissa Thompson, all of them coming up, planned, scheduled to come up today. We'll see how that works out as the day goes along. 913-912-4810 is the text line, and because we are going to be so hot and heavy with football and got a chance to talk to Justin Watson earlier today at Chiefs Media Availability, along with Nico Remigio and Turk Wharton and Joe Cullen. I just wanted to sit down and listen to Joe Cullen's voice. That's all. I mean, I had to ask questions so he would keep talking, but it's really just to hear Joe Cullen talk. I don't even care what he was saying. I didn't even hear what he was saying. I was just the sound of his voice. So talking with Joe Cullen and Mike Caliendo and what his season has been and how often he gets called Frank, because he's been called Frank by me a number of times, and I've had to actually, you know, when I moved to the Eastern time zone back in 2010, I was doing the math twice because I had grown up in Central time zone, obviously. So it was 9 Eastern, 8 Central. So I would see 9. I'm like, all right, it's at 9 o'clock. No, it's at 8 o'clock. No, it's Eastern time. It's at 9 o'clock. I did that for probably 3 or 4 months before I got used to the fact that everything actually is Eastern time. So I just have to simply go by that. And I've done that with Frank and Mike Caliendo this year. I'm like, no, his name, it's Frank. No, wait, Mike's the guard. Frank's the comedian. No, wait, Mike's the comedian. Frank's the... I'll figure it out. I'll get it. So, yeah, we'll talk with him about... or we talked with him about that, and he had a funny answer about being called Frank. So we'll hear from Mike Caliendo in the show. We're barreling towards what should be a pretty fantastic Sunflower Showdown on Saturday, because Kansas State has held up their end of the bargain. KU did what they needed to do, taking care of Iowa State on Monday night, and Kansas State going to Arizona State, and it looked like it was a team that still had the hangover, right? Had the hangover from Iowa State. All right, you go and beat down Iowa State. You've won 3 in a row, but are you going to be able to go to Arizona State and play that game? Like, I didn't know what they would look like. Is this just a team that played really well and played some hot basketball for a few games, or is this a team that is actually turned it around and is just playing different? And when they're down 15-0. At that point, you're like, all right, well, you know, it was a nice 3-game run, but going to be hard for you to dream about making the tournament without winning the Big 12 tournament if you lose to Arizona State. And they did not. They did not lose to Arizona State. They came back and won 71-70. They took a lead. You know, they lost the lead, took the lead back. It was an incredible game of runs. Like, it was an incredibly entertaining game. It was a fun game to watch, and I'm happy for K-State fans because the season has been pretty miserable up until the last 4 games, and to see now what this team is becoming and how well they're playing together, and to overcome a 15-0 deficit, you feel like, all right, so you did that. So is there a deficit? Is there a game? Is there a lead that you can't overcome in some of these games? And it's a build-up to what should be a fun one in Manhattan against Kansas and taking on the Jayhawks, who again took their business against Iowa State. So both of these teams coming in, Kansas not as much. Maybe they got things back on track against Iowa State, but Kansas State is playing their absolute best basketball right now and winning that game. And we've talked about in the 3-game winning streak what Coleman Hawkins has done, McDaniel, what Howson has done, and last night it was Gasson. And it felt like when you're a good college basketball team, you've got to have different answers to the test. When we look at the NFL part of it, like these two teams this weekend, they have different answers to the test. The Chiefs showed they have different answers to the test because it was, well, they're not going to be able to score 30 points. You know, they can only score 30. If you get in a shootout with the team, if the team's going to come in and score 30 points, they're going to lose or tie or, you know, have to win in overtime to score more points than 30. They're just not going to be able to do that because offensively they have been. So what are the answers to the test when you have to go and put points on the board? And the Chiefs showed that they could break out the passing game. They did have those answers. They did look even better than the 32 points they put on the board because of that fumble that took place on drive number 2. It was an incredibly impressive game for the Chiefs offensively. They had answers to the test. And last night, it's like, okay, is Coleman Hawkins playing well? Is Doug McDaniel playing well? Is Howson knocking down shots? Yes, it was. But Gasson was the reason they won last night. Let's just go ahead and say it. He was the reason that they won last night. And he grabs 8 boards to go along with the 22 points. The big free throws late in the game for a guy that isn't a great free throw shooter. He went 5 of 6 from the line last night. And you needed Gasson to play that way because if he did not have that game, we'd be talking about K-State losing, and we'd be talking about, okay, what happened and what do they look like on Saturday? Did they just have 3 really good games in a row? But that's not what we're talking about because they had different guys step up at different times. And that was an interesting part of last night. It was one of the takeaways that I had. Max Jones having a really good game, knocking down 3 threes in that game. And grabbing 5 boards and dishing 3 assists in the game. So I thought it was an impressive victory for Kansas State because I'm not sure how many teams, depending on how they're playing right now, are losing 15-0 against that team, and they, you know, find a way to come back and win the game, and they did. And Quaintance goes to the line, and I don't know about anybody else, but he did not look like there was an ounce of confidence going to the free throw line. I was as convinced as I've ever been of somebody going to the free throw line, maybe since Christian Moody, sorry KU fans, going to the free throw line to shoot a couple of free throws, that he wasn't going to make either one. And he did not. And on that second one, you had to go, you had to box out, you had to be ready to grab a board that was coming off pretty strong. Like that thing is going to come off hard because he doesn't have the soft touch. He does not have the touch at the free throw line. That first one, you know, that was a long rebound. Like, you got to box out, you got to be ready to go. And Doug McDaniel coming in and getting the rebound and knowing the time on the clock and then heaving it down the other side of the floor to win the game. I was impressed by what I saw from K-State last night, and it makes me think that this is going to be one hell of a Sunflower Showdown on Saturday. So we've got 3 teams that 2 of them certainly feel like they're already in the tournament. Kansas, yes. Mizzou, yes. if they keep playing the way that they're playing, obviously. In Kansas State, again, that glimmer gets a little brighter with each game. Win on Saturday, the glimmer gets a little bit brighter because then you've got Arizona at home. It's these next 2 games over the next 6 days for K-State. And they've won these 4 games to put themselves in position to be in a spot that these next 2 games could have them really talking about making the tournament without winning the Big 12 tournament. And that is not a conversation I thought we would have. And if we were having that conversation, it was like, come on, let's live in reality here. But you beat Kansas and Arizona on Saturday, Tuesday. Yeah, you got to take that trip to BYU and Utah. Take care of Kansas and Arizona. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to continue playing good basketball. You put yourself in a position to where you start to get on the radar of some of the bracketologists and some of the people that are, talking about these different teams. And when that happens, you start the attention being paid with the selection committee as well. There is a long, long road ahead of them to be able to get in this position. But they have dug the first parts of getting out of the hole that they dug themselves in earlier. They've climbed out some of it, right? They're starting to climb out of that hole. This would be a huge boost, a ladder, a big push up the hill if they can knock off Kansas and Arizona. But it was an impressive game. Coleman Hawkins hits a big 3 in the game at a big spot when Arizona State was knocking down shots. Again, Doug McDaniel coming in and getting the rebound and cleaning that thing up. The 2 free throws for Gasson, 22 points for Gasson. Max Jones with the game that he had. It was an impressive victory for K-State last night. So I'm happy for them that we're talking about something positive with this Wildcat team. We're really talking about something positive if they take care of business on Saturday. I doubt we'll be talking about that on Monday, considering the fact that we'll be discussing the Super Bowl, but let's get to that. Let's hear from, as we switch gears, let's hear from Jalen Watson. Justin Watson. It's a Watson, or a Jackson Heights home. Justin Jalen Watson. Around Watson. Yeah. That boy good. Let's hear from Justin Watson, who is a wide receiver, not cornerback, for this Chiefs team, about Super Bowl number 4 for him. He was in the Super Bowl for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This guy's never lost a Super Bowl, so he is 3 for 3 in winning Super Bowls, okay? So if he's on the field, he's winning Super Bowls. That's the conversation I had about an hour ago with Justin Watson.
You kind of get the whole deal, right? I mean, you're in, sitting down, ready to go because this is kind of I don't want to say it's old hat, but it's something that you're experienced with.
Yeah, it's Super Bowl's is special, and there's something new, and there's a new way you got to find a win. So we're excited for a challenge on Sunday, and looking forward to the week of preparation.
How about your career? If you could take me back through it, because you were on that Bucs team, the beat this Chiefs team, so you have that Super Bowl ring, and then these last couple, as you look back, like how special has it been that you get to experience these things, and this is kind of
yeah, that first Super Bowl, it felt like a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And the year after that, I tore my knee and was rehabbing and didn't know what football was going to look like. And Chiefs called, and man, what a special ride it's been these last 3 years. Getting to 3 more Super Bowls, just getting to share that with family, meet so many people on this team, and just make memories that'll last a lifetime.
Did it take a while to sort of be a part of the group because you were part of that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that beat the Chiefs, and you were welcomed in, really?
I think because it wasn't such a close game, there wasn't too many hard feelings, and then there was a lot of new guys when we started on this quest for what's now 3 in a row. There was all new receivers in that receiver room, a lot of new faces all around. So it was just kind of a redefining moment for a lot of us in our careers and this Chiefs team as a whole.
Do you guys get annoyed isn't the right word, when you talk about, and people ask you about the 3 Ps, because the common sentiment is that there's no talk about that inside the building. The only time you guys talk about it is when people like me ask you about it. Is it something with the territory, or is it something to where when you hear it, it's like, get that out of my mind, because I don't even think about that till it's over.
Yeah, I don't think there's any bad publicity out there. We always like when people are talking about the Chiefs. For us, it just didn't really affect us at all. We started in OTAs and just try to have a good week, 1 week at a time, carry that in the training camp and into the season. It was just a 1-week season knowing that everybody was giving us their best shot each week. So I think for us, it's refreshing to finally be here in the Super Bowl. Obviously, it was a goal all year that we haven't spoken about. It's just refreshing to be here this week and know that that's the next step.
Like Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, you guys have talked about every year you start over from scratch. What happened the year before? Is that easy to do? To just compartmentalize what happened last year doesn't matter that it's OTAs or mini camp or training camp, that this is a brand new year?
Oh, it's definitely a challenge. I think most teams, most franchises you look at, there's a little bit of a championship hangover each year. Even teams that reach the Super Bowl the following year, it's hard to keep guys healthy, under contract, and motivated. And from the top down, our GM, Brett Beach, Coach Reid setting the pace, and then the leaders we have on our team, like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, all those guys make sure that we're all three of those things and that we're hungry and chomping at each other as soon as we can when we report in the spring.
So, from your standpoint as a wide receiver, from a personal perspective, last year was sort of a rough year for the wide receiver group because there was a lot of talk about winning in spite of what was going on. This year, it's a big part of the conversation of how good that room is. Does it matter like who gets credit or not in that room, and whether it does or not, how nice is it that people are talking about the wide receiver room being a big reason why you guys are here?
Yeah, I'm really proud of this room. It's a lot of the same guys that were here last year that battled through a lot of the criticism, and I think improved a lot as the year went. Obviously, enough to be a championship caliber receiver room last year, and then, like you said, this year, I'm just really proud of the resilience of this group. We've had guys like Hollywood Brown return from injury in the middle of the year, DeAndre Hopkins get traded in and just join into our group without missing a beat. And, another guy, Xavier Worthy, comes in as a rookie, has to fill big shoes as a receiver one after Rasheed Rice gets hurt, and has just done a great job leading our group up the field. So just really proud of the resiliency of this receiver group.
And everybody's had a hand in it. Like, it doesn't go down as a stat for your catch in the AFC Championship game. That was a pretty big play to get the 2-point conversion there and to come through, because that changed a lot of how the rest of the game went.
Yeah, that's just who we are as a group. We got so many playmakers, and it's just whoever's turn it is, we're looking for it. And that's the special part about the playoffs is nobody really cares about the stats anymore. The only one that matters is the win at the end of the day. It's my favorite part of the year. You got a bunch of guys who are in all different parts of their career, and they're all focused on one thing, winning the Super Bowl.
What's it been like to see guys like DeAndre, Hollywood Brown, not necessarily Xavier, you guys have been around, you're close with, interacting with, that are getting to experience this for the first time?
Yeah, like you said, for a guy like myself that's in my fourth Super Bowl, it's just a reminder of how special and how hard it is to get to this game. DeAndre Hopkins has a Hall of Fame career, played 12 years, done everything in the NFL, and reaching his first Super Bowl, first AFC Championship last week. So just a reminder that.
All right, there's Justin Watson. He was going to say, it's just a reminder that, Jason, I really enjoy talking to you. It's just a reminder of how cool it is that I get to talk to you at these Super Bowls. I don't know why that got cut off, but that's exactly what he said. You're going to have to take my word for it, because there's no other way for anybody in the world to know if he actually said that or not. Phil, and you believe me, right? That's what he said? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of just managing my ego a little bit, and I didn't want you to hear that. So I clipped it off, but I didn't do a good job of it, unfortunately. I left too much in there, so.
So, yep, you left it open to you know what? You left it open to imagination, unlike Kanye's wife at the Grammys. There's no imagination left with that. So now we have to imagine what Justin Watson.
I marked that for myself, and now it's for both.
I don't know what he said. Who knows? But it is funny because we talk about this Chiefs team. We don't talk about Super Bowl hangovers with this Chiefs team. Like we just don't talk about that, and that's one thing that he said there. Is like, you hear about teams with Super Bowl hangovers, and the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, the other guys talk about. No, we start from scratch. We start over at training camp. We're starting. The last year doesn't matter. We start from the beginning. We're not building off of that last year. We start over with everything. He said, yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy to just forget about everything that happened and act like these are 2, 3, 4, whatever, completely separate, entirely unique seasons. Because you hear about teams with those hangovers, these Super Bowl or late playoff run hangovers. years. And this Chiefs team, I mean, it's just, they haven't had it. They lose in the AFC Championship game in overtime. They win the Super Bowl. They go to the Super Bowl. They lose in the AFC Championship game in overtime. They win the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, now back to the Super Bowl. There is no hangover for this team. They just continue to be steady, just a train chugging along, and other teams that have come and gone and have risen up and got to that spot. They are the ones that have had hangovers, and the Chiefs have been the mainstay. People can make any excuse they want, but we know the reality of what it is with this Kansas City Chiefs organization. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. We'll tell you about a really cool deal you can get. And then Rich Gannon is going to join us later on this hour. We will hang out with Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert, and we'll continue rolling. More Zone next. All right, folks, let me tell you about my friends over at and about this, try to commemorate some of these really awesome things that are going on. And the Chiefs are now the first team ever to win back-to-back Super Bowls and then make it back to the Super Bowl. And yet another opportunity for people to check out something at Nikos Sports to be able to commemorate this, to remember this forever.
It sure is, Jason, and always love being with you. You're on Radio Row today, aren't you?
I am here.
I did that for many, many years, and it is you got to be quick on your feet to get interviews and everything else. But it's a fun time, and certainly I know for Chiefs fans, it is terrific being back in the Super Bowl for a third consecutive year and getting ready for that big game on Sunday. And we have something I believe Chiefs fans are going to want to get their hands on because it's a limited edition. Only 5,000 of these officially licensed full-size footballs are going to be produced. It's going to help raise some monies for the Jackson County CASA, which is just a great organization. They help out a lot of youngsters who have been experienced abuse or neglect through the sale of these special footballs that we've done, and that is the charity of the choice for the Chiefs. Like I mentioned, only 5,000 will be made. When you order these, they're priced at $129.95. You'll get an individually numbered certificate of authenticity. I want to point out on every panel of the football, what makes these extremely special, they're embossed, so it's not pad printed. This is almost like being engraved in the various panels so that these numbers and stats and pictures will stay pristine looking for years to come. And you'll get a numbered certificate of authenticity. This football will be updated, not if, but when the Chiefs win. I'm predicting a 34-27 victory for Kansas City. And so you'll be able to get on board on this early. But it does right now celebrate 3 consecutive AFC championships, the official Super Bowl logo, stadium history on that top panel. The middle panel has an outlay of the 2024 season schedule with scores, dates, and the opponents right next to a real handsome Chiefs helmet logo. And the third panel is really my favorite because it has an action image of quarterback Patrick Mahomes and his 2024 stats. And then right next to that, we have a really cool-looking picture of Travis Kelce when he dunked over the crossbar a few games ago and made history there, along with his 2024 stats. So you get all this on this football. It's one of a kind. It's only being sold by Nikos Sports to help out the Jackson County CASA group. So here's how you can order it. Toll-free number is 1-800-345-2868. They're priced at $129.95. Again, that number, 1-800-345-2868, or go right to the website. You can see it there, NIKOsports.com. It's spelled NIKCOsports.com. That's NIKCOsports.com. Jump on board this because the last 2 years we've done this, they've completely sold out. This is the first time we're actually offering it before the game, and if you order it now, you will get the final version. So you can also download a very nice gift card and print it out instantly so that, Jason, you could give this away maybe for a Valentine's Day gift coming up or some other items. So I would encourage people to do this sooner than later. We've already sold about, well, I would say, close to 40% of the 5,000 footballs already. So don't miss out on this. Get on board, and you'll be able to have this in time to celebrate after the game.
Bob, you're the man. I really appreciate it, sir. That's Nikos Sports. We'll continue telling people about this awesome opportunity. It is now 3 consecutive Super Bowls for the Kansas City Chiefs, and now transitioning to a man sitting down with us who played in a Super Bowl, not for the Chiefs, but for the Raiders, but certainly a fan favorite still in Kansas City, and that is Rich Gannon, who joins us here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, Sirius XM NFL Radio, VSiN, 33rd Team, and NFL MVP Rich Gannon. Rich, welcome to the show. How are you?
Bro, it's so good to be with you, and I'm so excited to be here. And, of course, I think these are 2 great teams. It's no accident that these are the last 2 teams standing, and when you look at what they did during the regular season and the postseason. And as a former Chief, I'm always excited to see Andy and Patrick and the guys doing well. And Yeah, and an opportunity to go for a three-peat that's never been done before. It's been quite a run that we've seen in Kansas City.
You're in an interesting position because you're still a fan favorite in Kansas City, and obviously you're an MVP and went to a Super Bowl with the Raiders. This hated rivalry, and you're a man sort of right in the middle. What is that like in your life where you love the Raiders, you love the Chiefs, and both those teams sort of dislike each other?
Anybody knows my story. I loved playing in Kansas City. I mean, I had 4 great years. I played with some great players, some of my best friends. Marty Schottenheimer was so good for me. Paul Hackett, Mike McCarthy, John Alt, Dave Zott, Tim Grunhard, Will Shields, all those guys, and on both sides of the ball. And so I loved playing in Kansas City. The fans were great. Always loved coming back. It was so hard to play in Kansas City as a member of the Raiders. But when I left Kansas City, with Kansas City, there was so much structure and discipline and accountability and professionalism. When I went to the Raiders, it was just the opposite. It was crazy. And so it was hard for me to really function in that environment. I think we helped to change the culture and the environment when I was there, so I'm proud of that. Disappointed that we couldn't finally get over the hump, but we had a lot of obstacles. We had a center that went missing the night before the Super Bowl, and we had a lot of things that made our days there kind of difficult. And that's why I appreciate the time I had in Kansas City. When I was in Kansas City, all I do is come to the building prepared. Like, I didn't have to worry about anything else. You know what I mean? Marty took care of it, the coaches, the players. The players policed the locker room. That wasn't the case with the Raiders.
Interesting. When people around Kansas City, myself included, think back, this run is so special because of the heartbreak that happened, and you lived and played through the heartbreaks of '95 and '97. I've continued to live with the. Man, I just wish Rich got in the game earlier.
So do I.
In both 95 and 97. If you're on the sideline, are you itching like, come on, Marty, come on, get me in here, man. I know I can get this team over the hump.
Well, both of those situations were different. The 95 game, we were playing the Colts, and it was freezing cold. And with about 5-minute mark in the fourth quarter, Mike McCarthy turned to me and said, "Hey, get ready." And then I was getting ready to take my Parker off and go over and start warming up, and they said, hold on. So I think I think what was happening was Paul Hackett and Marty were talking about making the change, and they didn't make the change until like 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
We went down and we missed that field goal. But the following, the 97 season was completely different because I think I started the last 8 games of the season. Yep. We won 7 of them. We were rolling. We were playing great offensively. We were dominating defensively, and then they decided to put Elvis in there. And in fairness to Elvis, he hadn't practiced, hadn't played. He wasn't ready to play. He wasn't physically ready to play. He just ran out of gas in that game. That team, that 97 team, was good enough to win it all. And, I mean, we almost beat the Broncos at home with Elvis, and they, of course, went on to win a Super Bowl. That was really, even to this day, it's painful for me because I think that was the best team I ever played on.
So 97 was more painful than 95.
I think so. Yeah. I think the 97 team was so good. I mean, defensively, it was hard to score on us.
Yeah.
And then, and offensively, we didn't have to go out and score 35 points to win. I mean, you could score 21 and win. And that was a great team. So that was frustrating. But, you look at what's happening now. I think what's so impressive about the Chiefs' run right now are 2 things. I think their ability, they understand who they are. They've won all these one-score games. I think Andy's told these guys, look, we're not good enough to beat anybody unless these things happen. And I think they've bought into that. Their ability to handle success is incredible. I mean, think about this three-peat. It's hard to get back after a Super Bowl. But this team is in their 3rd Super Bowl, 7 straight AFC championship game appearances. Their ability to handle success, but also their ability to handle adversity. And there's no team that's better in football inside of 3 minutes to go in the game. And I think a lot of it has to do with the trigger, Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. He's a different guy late in games.
What's it like watching him? I know Kirk Cousins joked about it and said, I talked to my kids and we're watching Patrick Mahomes, and it's like, I don't think we play the same position. And he's certainly done a lot of things. But I watch Patrick Mahomes, and there's Rich Gannon there. Like, watching you, make plays in the backfield, stiff-arming a guy while dumping it off to a guy. Like, you're one of the guys that I remember of playing sort of this style before it was accepted, as opposed to you got to stay in the pocket and get your feet set and, the footwork and everything. You were just like, how about I just make a play?
I think he's taken it to another level, though. I just think he's such a special player. I think a couple things with him. I think the game has slowed down so much for him that I don't want to say it's easy, but I think he sees and processes and absorbs so much information quickly and efficiently. He's been in the same system his entire career. I think Andy does a great job not limiting him. I think letting him go play. And, Tom Moore, the great assistant coach in the NFL that coached Peyton Manning for years, he's always say when you have a thoroughbred, the worst thing you can do is put the reins on him and hold him back. You can't do that. And Andy hasn't done that with Patrick. Lets him go out there and run and play his game and play up style and be aggressive. I think you have to do that with a great quarterback. I think the other thing about Patrick, we talked about this, is that his heartbeat late in games is like virtually non-existent. Like the guy is like, I always say there's two types of quarterbacks in the NFL: those who feel pressure and those that apply pressure. Wow. And he's all about applying pressure. And late in games, I mean, John Madden used to always say, like, if it's one thing that like, I'm going to get this job done. I think your teammates know it, the coaches know it. But when the other team knows it, like you talk to the Eagle players and they say, like, we just can't get in a situation with 2 minutes to go and be up by a field goal and have him have the football. He goes, it's not going to end well for us. Think about that. Like they already know, like if Mahomes has the ball late in the game with a chance to score and win it, we're probably not going to be able to hoist that Lombardi Trophy. And then when everybody in the stadium knows it's going to happen, then you have something special.
Rich Gannon is our guest. This Chiefs dynasty, we look back and sort of Andy Reid when he was brought in 13, Patrick Mahomes being drafted in 17 and sort of setting this thing up. You were right there front and center in a game of a birth of a previous dynasty in the Patriots and the Tuck rule. That was such a bad rule that the NFL eventually got rid of it. I've often wondered, like, what life would be like, what the NFL would be like if it wasn't ruled an incomplete pass. You guys win the game. Does Belichick go back to Bledsoe? You know what I mean? Like, they don't win that game and win the Super Bowl. Like, who knows what life would be like? Maybe, you guys play in the Super Bowl that year. Maybe the next year, the experience of being there.
We traded away our coach.
That's right.
Think about that.
Right.
You talk about how
Al said, was it because he didn't fight hard enough?
When you think about that game, how it turned the fortunes of two franchises. So the Raiders went back and basically traded away their head coach. So John Gruden and Al couldn't get together on a contract, and Al decided enough's enough, and so he traded him away. And we had something great going on. Yeah. I mean, we had 3 straight AFC West titles, been to AFC Championship game, and then all of a sudden he trades away our coach. So that was crazy. But then from the Patriots' perspective, they go on a run of 2 decades where they go to 7 Super Bowls, whatever it was. I mean, it's but the thing about Brady, I'll say this: regardless of the outcome of that game, Brady's going to be a special player. And I think if you would just go work him out in street clothes, you wouldn't be all that impressed. It's not the stuff that he, it's just everything that was. I think his heart was really where it started. Like it was so important to him to be successful, to be great, to work at his craft, to have passion for the game. Just a relentless pursuit of excellence. I think that's what made him so special.
Is that? Are you over that game? Is it tough to ever get over that game?
I don't think you ever get over it, but it is what it is. I always look at it. People always focus on that one play, and I've never done that as a quarterback. Like when you miss a kick, Lynn Elliott missing a kick in the '95 game. Like you say, all right, well that was a big play, but there was lots of opportunities where we didn't convert a third down. There's lots of opportunities where we didn't get off the field on third down, or we gave up an explosive play, or we didn't use our timeouts, whatever the situation was. It's never one play in a game. There's certainly a number of plays that contribute to a win or a loss, but I've never been one to focus on just one play.
Does it bother you that you weren't actually the 1998 sexiest athlete in the world on People Magazine? Is that
I got over that one pretty quickly. I know for certain that I would have turned that request down, and I think we were all shocked that Elvis, him and his agent, said yes. But I just remember it happening, and a bunch of us were like, "What?" And then when we saw the pictures and stuff, we're like, and he's not a bad looking guy. It just wasn't a great picture of him. But Elvis was a good guy, and I think a little bit misunderstood. But the one thing that was frustrating for me was there's certain guys that love it, they're just into every part of it, that's the thing, and Elvis just wasn't wired that way. I was, and I just think that was a big mistake on the part of Carl and Marty, that there was an opportunity to have me play more and to keep me in Kansas City, as opposed to allow me to walk out the door and sign with the Raiders. And by the way, I didn't want to go to the Raiders. I mean, there was an opportunity there, and John Gruden. I signed with the Raiders because of John Gruden. I knew that was a guy that I could win with, that was going to give me an opportunity to play and believe in me, and that was so important.
What is it like when you get a special wide receiver? Mahomes has had to do it a number of different ways. Tyreek, Travis, a wide receiver group that wasn't as good last year. Throwing to a guy like Tim Brown or,
Jerry
Rice. Yeah, Tim Brown and Jerry Rice. When you've got guys like that, how much easier is your job as a quarterback?
You know what's amazing? When you look at the Chiefs, they don't have a 1,000-yard receiver. They don't have a 1,000-yard running back. When you look at how they're getting it done, they're really getting it done with a third and fourth receiver, a number 2 tight end, number 2, or even like P. Ryan coming in last week on the third down. That's how they're winning. And I think that speaks volumes about Andy, Matt Nagy, their offensive staff, this quarterback who's able to overcome a lot of adversity and is not necessarily playing with the top receivers in football. He's got a tight end that's still a productive guy, but maybe not the same player he once was. I just think it's amazing. I think the one constant in all that has been number 15.
Yeah.
It tells you a little bit about how that team is built.
Rich Gannon is our guest. All right, who do you got this weekend?
I don't know how you can pick against the Chiefs, and a lot of the focus here. It's funny because you get a sense of what everyone feels around here in New Orleans. A lot of people say, "Oh, the Eagles got the best offensive line, best defensive line. The Eagles got the best personnel. The Eagles got this running back, Saquon Barkley." Yeah, they do, but they don't have Patrick Mahomes. And I just know this: late in the game, who do I trust more, Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes? I'm going with Patrick Mahomes all day long.
Yep. We'll see what ends up happening. Rich, really enjoyed it catching up with you.
Brother, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Rich Gannon, certainly fan favorite, still in Kansas City, 2002 NFL MVP, 1998 was supposed to be People Magazine's sexiest athlete alive, but also just a really good quarterback, as it showed when he went to the Raiders. But, yeah, he was on that field with the Tuck rule there. So we appreciate Rich Gannon. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. Be hanging out at Super Bowl 59, getting ready for this weekend's game. Day number 3 here in New Orleans on Radio Row. Our coverage presented by the CW Farm and Ranch Venue, Adams Toyota Lee Summit, Made in KC, and McGregor's Butcher and Bistro. Thank you to Rich Gannon joining us in the previous segment, talking about his time in Kansas City and the 4 years that he played, and his time going to the Raiders and how dysfunctional the organization was and trying to sort of get things on track from being at a professionally run organization, everything organized and knowing what to expect each day you came into the office, and then going to the Raiders and having to sort of turn that culture around, and he did. They get a couple of deep runs in the playoffs, one of those a Super Bowl, and then some crazy things happen. They have the center goes AWOL, the night before the Super Bowl and can't be found, and all these different distractions and everything. But I'm always curious, about, him being on the field for that Tuck Rule game, which was the divisional round game. And as I brought it up there and asked him, and he said, look, you knew Tom Brady was going to be Tom Brady. The heart that he had, just you work him out, and you just know that Tom Brady is going to be that guy. So, because the way I presented it is, if that Tuck Rule is called a fumble, the Raiders win. And Tom Brady has a game in which he turned the ball over twice and didn't throw a touchdown, and they lost in the divisional round at home to the Raiders. Like, does that change Bill Belichick's mind? Does he then go back to Drew Bledsoe? Does he eject on the Tom Brady view of moving forward with the Patriots organization? So. But he said, look, it doesn't like that people focus on that one play, but there were a lot of plays along the way. Yeah, I mean, they scored 13 points, so there you go. Score more than 13 points. It was a crazy weather game. They were up 13-3, so they had the ball multiple times to be able to extend the lead. They had defensive opportunities to keep the lead, and none of it happened, and they end up losing that game. But we appreciate Rich Gannon and talking about his time, love of being in Kansas City, and picking the Chiefs. Cynthia Freeland coming up next.
She's done the research.
I measured the big boys' booties for like 2 years.
She's analyzed the data.
If you can keep that big booty down, like if you are a big boy, if you're very tall and you can keep your booty down low, then you are far more successful.
She's crunched the numbers, and the results are clear.
The back of booty isn't as good, as it turns out.
If she picks a dog, she'll have the math to back it up.
It's not like Travis Kelce is done. My dog is very excited about this, just so you know.
It's Cynthia Freeland of NFL Network. Now in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Day number 3 here in New Orleans, Radio Row. Our coverage presented by the CW Farm and Ranch venue, Adams Toyota, Lee Summit, Made in KC, and McGregor's Butcher and Bistro. Thank you to Rich Gannon joining us earlier in the show. In the previous hour, we'll be talking with Chris Canty, Michelle Beadle, Bernie Kosar, Scott Graham, Kimmy Chex, Carissa Thompson, all on the show today. And, of course, we get to talk with Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert here on getting ready for Super Bowl 59. Cynthia, welcome into the show. How are you?
Woohoo! Happy Super Bowl. 3rd time in a row doing this.
It's just crazy, right? It's like, we're like, well, we know what to expect on opening night, and we know, well, this is going to be over there, and we know how this is going to go. It's just, talking to the Chiefs, and it's kind of the same thing, Cynthia. It's like, well, yeah, we know we're just going to get through this, and then this is going to happen over there, and then this day is that, it's old hat. It's getting, at least working it. It's not getting old hat or old in any way, shape, or form of experiencing what the Kansas City fans are experiencing right now.
And you know what? You know who it's really not getting old hat for? Like, I watch very closely to see if, like, Patrick Mahomes looks like he's sick of doing this. It's a lot of people asking you a lot of questions and, like, pulling you in 15 billion directions. Like, but you know what? He just seems like so grateful. Like, this is why he's the greatest that we're going to see, at least in my belief, in our lifetime, because not only is he doing it at such a high level on the field, but, like, the human that he is off the field. He's like, signing things for people and just being kind, like, who does that? It's the 3rd time in a row. He could be totally over it, and he's not.
Yeah, and he's even willing to actually give a decent answer to a shock jock on opening night, asking him about his favorite referee and sending a Christmas card to referees. And Patrick Mahomes actually answered the freaking question,
right.
Which is,
So God forbid we all have fun at a sport that we love. It's just a good reminder. My goodness, when we talk about GOAT status, that's a GOAT status question. My favorite stupid question that they ask is this a must-win game? I love when players have to answer that. They're like, what?
Is this a must-win game? This is quite – for the last month, it's been the definition. We are now in must-win games. There's some people that say, I won't say it's a must-win game until it's literally a must-win game. Yeah, we're there. We are in must-win games. Cynthia, I know that you like –
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, you love the analytics of it and breaking down the game that way. I'm going to bring an analytics stat to the table here that I saw yesterday, and that is the team that's wearing white in the last 20 Super Bowls is 16-4. And 3 of those, 2 of the losses are San Francisco against the Chiefs. One of those is also the Chiefs losing to the Bucs, but still, you've got 3 of those 4 losses involving the Chiefs in some way, shape, or form. That's scientific. I feel like it's kind of over already now, based on that.
It's science. Yeah, no. I think it's why would you let, if you're the Eagles, so technically the Eagles are the home team, right? So do they have to wear the non-white, or could they have worn it? Very confused how they picked the color scheme, because why would you let the Chiefs wear the white then?
I know,
just
right?
last time, even if you think about the rematch in general, why are you going to let them do that? I wouldn't posture. Remember, Iowa used to have, or I think they still have it, a pink locker room to psychological warfare against the other team. Why would you let them wear the whites? What are you doing?
I know. I was hoping that the NFL would just flip it anyway, just because it's a rematch of a couple of years ago, and it's going to be the same jersey colors and everything. So I was kind of hoping that would be the case, but not the case. All right, Cynthia, one of the big storylines we're obviously talking about this week is the difference in this Eagles team from a couple of years ago. And one of the main differences being Saquon Barkley. Defense is completely almost overhauled and rebuilt, but Saquon Barkley has done a ton for that offense. Is there a particular way or style or thing that teams have done to slow him down? I don't think you're going to stop him, but can they slow Saquon Barkley down in this game to where they aren't just controlling the game, controlling possession, limiting possessions in the game, and picking up 7-8 yards a pop with Saquon?
Well, good news is that the Chiefs are the best tackling defense in the entire NFL. They're sub 11% in terms of the missed tackle rate, so obviously the lower the number, the better. It's golf score for that. But when you're looking at Saquon, you have to make it's a decision. You have to make some business decisions about where you're going, what you're going to sacrifice. It's really Saquon, obviously, with explosive runs, or it's A.J. Brown outside the numbers, or it's Dallas Goedert. And then the X factor for me a bit is probably Devontae Smith's impact, given all of those other things. Sure, you can slow Saquon down, but what else are you surrendering, and do you have the one-on-ones available to be able to stop the other aspects should you devote extra resources to the Saquon stoppage?
The number that I saw, and this was from Sam McDowell at the Kansas City Star that does a great job as a columnist here, said Saquon Barkley, outside the tackles alone this year, has picked up over 1,200 yards rushing. Is there a way to sort of make – like the Chiefs – inside the tackles, that's where they make their money running the football, because they don't have explosive players to get outside the tackles. So it's got to be guard to guard inside the tackles. That's where we're going to run the football. Obviously, the Eagles can do that as well, but Saquon's so good at bouncing it out, and then you get in space, and it's just like it's good luck at that point. The guy can leap over you backwards. So, is that one of those to where they have to – setting the edge becomes almost incredibly vital in this game to make sure that he doesn't get outside the tackles, where he's clearly been incredibly explosive and efficient this year?
I mean, I'm going to dial it back because outside the tackles can be like kind of a game-specific matchup-based situation. To me, let's just look at macro for a minute and like think about Saquon. If he's moving with a full head of steam, how much harder it is to bring him down, right? So if you can – and the thing that stands out to me is the yards before contact. That can happen on inside rushes, outside rushes. Rushes where he's backwards, who knows, right? But yards before contact are the ones that I think are more prescriptive for this. Don't let him get going with a full head of steam, and you have a much better chance of limiting those explosive plays. That's what it's going to be about, right? Like even a little contact, right? Better to give up 7 than 17 yards, right? So ultimately for me, it's how are you going to get into the backfield, cause disruption, and force Jalen Hurts to beat you with a throw he wasn't anticipating making. That's going to be the prescription.
What do you see from Jalen Hurts as to why he is different or seems different this year in being a guy that was so good when facing pressure last year and, in the Super Bowl, but this year is ranking near the bottom or at the bottom of qualified quarterbacks when it comes to pressure?
Well, in the beginning of the season, I think a lot of that was the center situation. Replacing Jason Kelce is, I mean, Patrick Mahomes knows Brees Humphreys. Like there aren't good enough stats to be able to kind of reference the impact that a really good center has on your ability to, even the chemistry between at the snap, like all of those things. So I think that's how it kind of started. And then I think that was kind of like a snowball going down a mountain, right? And it just kind of created a little bit of that, psychological impact of, oh gosh, like this isn't what it felt like before. It'll take time. He'll get over it. He's had better luck outside the numbers. Those a harder throw technically if you think about it in more recent weeks. But I think a lot of it started from disrupting Jason Kelce. And then of course we saw kind of the same thing happen when Cam Jurgens was injured and banged up and Landon Dickerson was banged up this past, I know the Final Four was a little ridiculous, but you still saw some hesitation from Hurts there too.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's Jurgens and Landon Dickerson were both battling that. I expect them to be healthy in this game. The Chiefs are as healthy as they've been all year, so I think those guys will be out there ready to go. Cynthia Freeland is our guest. What do you make of? Is there a trend in the NFL, or is it we're just maybe seeing these teams lately that? We see these two teams this weekend. The best player on the Eagles defense is an interior defensive lineman, game record Jalen Carter. The best player on the Kansas City Chiefs is an interior defensive lineman, game record Chris Jones. The two teams that lost in the AFC Championship game, you can make a case that Ed Oliver is the best defensive player for the Buffalo Bills. Allen, Payne for the Commanders. Is there a trend there, or is it just happen to be these 4 teams to where that interior defensive lineman is the best player on that defensive side of the field for those teams, and are the game wreckers? Or are we seeing an influx of teams paying more attention and investing more and appreciating more, and maybe the evolution of that position is coming along to where we're seeing those game wreckers in the interior more often?
I think we're seeing I think there's one more thing there. I think that it's mostly that we're seeing like the game wreckers coming from the interior. No one plays base defense anymore very often, at least. So you're seeing fronts that are specifically tailored to try to exploit mismatches, and you're just closer to the quarterback if you're on the interior than on the edge. It's a yard. It can be yards closer depending on how far apart the offensive line is spread out. But first, the other thing is there are just worse interior offensive linemen across the league as well. So you're getting a better matchup against, we pay a lot of money to left tackles. We pay a lot of money to right tackles. They're pretty darn good. It's not, other than maybe, I don't know, the Panthers spent a lot on guards, but there aren't as many really high-quality guards in the league-wide as there are tackles, and part of that's because, money, but also, there aren't, and so if you're smart, if you're a defensive front, to add a guy like a Jalen Carter to be a really big problem for some guards who aren't maybe as good.
Yeah. Will it start to put a premium maybe on that? Because I know that, the money, always left tackle, and then we're seeing these premier pass rushers line up on the left side of the defensive line, and like, okay, well, let's pay the right tackle too, because that seems dumb to be putting a lesser player against their best defensive players. Does it start to put a premium then? I bring it up because Trey Smith is going to have maybe the most important matchup of the entire game, as he's going to be lining up. Jalen Carter will be right against him the whole game. Jalen Carter does not move around. He is the left defensive tackle for the Eagles. That's where he lines up. That's where he plays. And Trey Smith is a free agent at the end of this year. So I think it is an incredibly big game for him. But is it? Let's say Trey Smith goes out there and holds his own, and Jalen Carter is stymied. He's going to make a lot of money in the offseason. But would it start to put a premium if we see more and more of these defensive game wreckers in the interior of saying, you know what, we'll pay Chiefs pay Joe Thuney, we'll pay Trey Smith, we'll pay Creed Humphrey, we're going to pay the interior of the offensive line, because we're seeing a lot of guys that are destroying offenses because they're so good guard to guard.
Yeah, and then what'll happen? Then because we have a cap, and we know that then the outside guys will get an advantage. But no, yeah, I mean, look, you have to build with what's best available to you. This is also this draft class is not the strongest offensive line draft class by a long shot. So that's gonna drive up prices too. But ultimately, you're gonna, every once in a while, like Quentin Nelson was like a generational talent at guard, right? Like still, and he lived up to expectations. Robert Hunt just got paid so much money. So it's not like there's never been examples. It's a little more rare than it is. The left tackle guys, they just make more on an average basis.
And people wondered why the Chiefs paid Joe Thuney that much money, and that's worked out for him. Doesn't mean it's going to work out for everybody, but it certainly worked out for them.
I wish he could be playing left guard and not left tackle. Whatever.
Yes, that would be nice. It's funny because I brought that up last week of saying, I wonder if this is going to be somewhat of a conversation if DJ Humphries comes back and plays left tackle and Joe Thuney left guard because of the interior of that defensive line. For the Eagles, and Andy Reid put that to bed pretty quickly, and we'll stick with the guys that are there, and Caliendo will be at left guard, Joe Thuney at left tackle. It doesn't worry me as much in this game because Will Anderson is a different beast where he can just speed to power and knock Joe Thuney off his anchor and just push him back. Where I think Joe Thuney in a matchup against Nolan Smith, where Joe Thuney is going to be a quicker, more technical, left tackle, Josh Sweat, guys like that, it doesn't scare me as much with Joe Thuney at left tackle / guard because it's and he's held his own really well anyway, so it shouldn't scare me anyway. But just that matchup, like you're not going up against a big bull rusher. That's the no butt for Joe Thuney would be a problem at tackle for him, as you've talked about.
Right.
No booty.
The other part is you have 2 weeks to get ready for this one. So rushing tendencies, week over week don't really change, right? Like, so now you have a bunch of, like, you know what the Eagles are going to do. Vic Fangio, you know how it's going to basically work. They're not going to be throwing different things that they haven't seen all season. So you have quite a bit of time to be able to, relatively speaking, to be able to adjust to however that's gonna. I'm not as worried about what happens on the left side of the line. As I am about stopping Saquons with explosives, for example. I know those are two different sides of the ball, but I just think that you could you could move Saquon around and you could do some new interesting tricks that the Chiefs defense has never seen before, but you're not going to see from the Eagles defensive front, like, hey, they just totally changed their pass rushing scheme. It's not going to happen.
Cynthia Freeland is our guest, and stopping the explosives, can you – trying to think of the way to phrase this. Can you design or scheme a defense to just simply make sure he doesn't get an explosive run? Or, Cynthia, would the strategy be best in, okay, he may get us with an explosive run here or there, but we will not let him get 8 yards a pop? Because if he's averaging 8 yards per carry and he picked up, 80 yards on one carry, and then the next 9 he's got none, well, then that 80-yard one killed you, but you're also setting him behind the chains and you're putting the ball more in Jalen Hurts' hands. The other one, that's a extreme example, obviously, but the Saquon Barkley, 6 yards, 9 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards. That's going to be what scares me the most about the Eagles' offense, is constantly staying ahead of the chains.
That's right. That grinds you down to a point where it's just very exhausting. I don't think you can say no explosive. I just don't think that's going to be realistic because numbers-wise, like unless you're going to devote a resource entirely to Saquon on every play, which would leave open Dallas Goedert, which would leave open anyone else. That could be very problematic. I think what you try to do is you try to understand how you try to get into the flow of how they've started games, and then you see the adjustments that are made at halftime because Saquon's been getting better as the game increases. I think one thing, as the game goes on, I think you can't allow those numbers to increase. Okay, they get you in a scripted portion, but now we're going to adjust and we're not going to let that happen. The first 15, 20 plays of the game, the scripted portion. Let's see what they're planning on doing. Let's get in their flow, and then let's stop their flow. That's kind of how I see. That's what I think Spags can do, because Spags is a great in-game adjuster too, but Saquon's been pretty prolific in second half of games this season.
Yeah, and the Eagles put themselves in decent positions, and they are the second highest run rate on third down, which opens up a lot of the playbook when you're saying, well, yeah, we'll run it here on 3rd and 6 because we're going to go for it on 4th down, Cynthia. So, this isn't a regular 3rd and 6 for us. This might be viewed as like a 3rd and 3 because if we pick up 3 or 4 yards, we're going for it on 4th down and we think we're going to get it. And I think there is something to playing that aggressive as to, you see a team that's willing to run it on 3rd down because they can certainly pick up the 1st down anyway. But if you're playing that aggressive and feel like, well, we got 2 downs to pick up 5, then we can run it here and then figure out what we're going to do on 4th.
That's right. That's right. But
is this?
But I also you could say the same thing about. I mean, to me, Patrick Mahomes, that's the same thing they're going to be dealing with as well, right? So I think that it's a different mechanism, but they kind of cancel each other out in the long run.
Cynthia Flynn is our guest. Is this still a league that you can throw yourself out of a deficit, or are we watching the evolution of the game where balance is needed more in a run game to a degree is somewhat required in this one? Can you be down and just simply throw like we've seen in not that long ago football?
If you're Patrick Mahomes, you can. If you're, it's personnel, right? Personnel dictates what we see, and trends. It swings. The pendulum swings back and forth. A couple of years ago, you would have been like, this configuration with the Eagles is not sustainable. Blah blah blah. Well, okay, it's sustained the season. That's fine, but that's in large part because the way that their offense also works, you have to defend the pass in a specific way. I think, but it's not like they were killing everybody with passing yards all season long, right? They weren't, right? It was working with Saquon. They didn't have to adjust. So then the passing plays were almost like tricks because it's far more infrequent than they had been in years past. It's a lot of what are we expecting and what happens. And if you go against the grain in a specific way, then you can get an advantage. How sustainable that is really depends on how good of, scouting there is on the other side, which that's where I can't, say enough good things about Steve Spagnuolo in particular.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Chiefs being a really good tackling team and number one. Like the Eagles seem to be that too. They're pretty darn good at tackling. Their secondary is really good at tackling. Yep. And this is what the first and second team in the NFL in limiting yards after catch over expected. Chiefs are first, Philadelphia second.
Yep.
And it's also why these two teams have lower explosive play rates allowed, is that they're really good tacklers. That's going to be something really interesting and fascinating about this. The Chiefs don't have as many explosive plays. The Eagles do, but the Chiefs are not like, when Saquon went crazy and was running all over the field against the Saints. Like the Saints don't really tackle people. So that makes sense, where the Chiefs are one of the best, if not the best, tackling teams in the NFL, and the secondary is really awesome. Cynthia Freeland at tackling. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. What's a bigger matchup in this game that can go towards dictating what happens? Is it the Chiefs offense versus the Philadelphia defense, or the Chiefs defense versus the Philadelphia offense? Which one of those, if the Chiefs won one of those battles, would be most indicative of them winning the game?
That's a great question. I'm going to go ahead and say the Chiefs offense over the Eagles defense, because the Chiefs can score so quickly, and it takes the Eagles longer, even if it looks like, mentally we have a picture of Saquon rushing against the Rams for like a bajillion yards and 2 long touchdowns. Okay, got it. But apart from that, it usually takes them longer to score. So just by virtue of how quickly the Chiefs could gash you with Patrick Mahomes and figuring out some new ways to use Xavier Worthy in the postseason, I think Chiefs with an offensive game plan, it's just going to be like the end of that matchup 2 seasons ago. Score on the final 4 drives, everything is good, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm with you. That was the one that I went with as well, because I think it's imperative that the Chiefs do not fall behind in this game. They have been trailing in all of these Super Bowls that they have played in. And even if you take away the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl, they've been a combined trailing 44-27 in these Super Bowls at halftime. Like that's not the script that you would design if you're Andy Reid. And against the Eagles, it's not the script that you would design. I think it's pretty crucial if the Chiefs can jump out to an early lead and put the pressure on the Eagles offense to try to, catch up, whether it's quickly or not, where the Chiefs are trying to play catch up like they've done too often in these Super Bowls.
And yet it doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
if the Eagles are limiting possessions, it may matter
that's
this one.
their Super Bowl style. Maybe that's the way they do it. Maybe that's how they want to do it. I don't know. Like, if it works, it works, right? Like that's where I think it may not be the ideal way to, it makes us uncomfortable watching because you're like, ugh, but if it's all said and done, if the confetti's red, like, pretty sure no one cares.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Doesn't matter how you get there as long as the confetti's red. That's a great way to put it. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network. All right, what do you think happens in the game, and if you have a score in mind for Sunday?
Well, interestingly, my model picks the Eagles by 1 point, 28-27, but my heart is like, heck no, not happening since Steve's three-peat. So this is where I'm at odds with the math. The 1 point difference maker is the fact that the rookie corners in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and the ability to play nickel with DeJean and have the fewest yards allowed per play in that configuration, it makes a tiny bit of difference. That's that along. I will say the Eagles O-line is higher rated than the Chiefs. I don't think anyone's surprised by me saying that. And that drives a tiny deficit. It's not even 1 point if I were allowed to use decimal points, but no one lets me do that. But yeah, so technically the math says Eagles, but my gut is like, this is a Chiefs three-peat for sure. And I'm glad we're going to be able to see the greatest to do it in our lifetime. And it's very special to be able to be like, I was there.
Yes,
when he did that.
I am. Yes, we are all on the same page with you to see if history can be made and they can complete the three-peat. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network. Cynthia, great stuff as always. Very much appreciate the time, and we'll see what happens. Looking forward to the football. Enjoy it, and we'll catch up next week.
Sounds great. Enjoy New Orleans. Stay out of this humidity.
Oh, you know what? I'm out of the humidity and I'm into the food. I mean, I ate way too much last night. Oh.
Perfect.
It was so good. Oh, man. I have no idea how people are skinny around here. You can't be. Cynthia, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
There you go. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. I mean, I'm not even joking. The food last night, like, It was everything, any and everything you can think of. Louisiana, New Orleans was there last night at this media party that they put on. It was just unfreaking real. I had a beignet burger last night, a burger between a beignet. Oh my God, it was unfreaking real. The jambalaya, the gumbo, the crawfish etouffee, the shrimp creole. I mean, it was just everything you can think of was there last night. It was so good, and I understand how difficult it would be to be in this town.
As a foodie, man, it would be impossible for me to be down there and not.
I wish you were there last night, man, because
what you just said, I literally
the beignet burger.
Beignet burger. I mean,
dude,
that I really have to almost go down there to try it.
The line was so long last night with the media for the beignet burger, and I'm like, well, I want to try it. So, and like Lebo and Michael and a couple of others were like, well, I don't. Yeah, they're like, yeah, let's see. Maybe it seems really long. I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to wait in line, and then I ate it, and I was like, oh my God. And then the other guys were about 5 or 6 people behind me, and right when they got up there, they were out, so they had to remake them. And it takes about 5 to 10 minutes for them to remake these, okay? So that's why the line was so long. And they were like, I don't know, let's go. And I bit into it, and I said, oh, God, it's worth it. You've got to stay in line. It is absolutely worth it. It's one of the best things that I have eaten. And I'm talking about, like, the real New Orleans jambalaya and gumbo and just so many different. Todd Lebo had a raw oyster, and I don't think it sat well with him because he doesn't like oysters. It sat in his mouth for probably 45 seconds before he got the nerve up to just simply be down with it. I think he had to drink a beer. I think it was a beer that helped wash the oyster down last night. But it was baked Alaska. It was.
Mussels? Was there any mussels or anything like that?
There were. I didn't see them because I'm telling you, you walk into this place and it was at Mardi Gras World, and so there's one room and there's like 8 different food stations with different foods, right? And then you go through this sort of little area, and another big room opens up, and there's like 8 other different ones, and it's all different. And then you go outside next to the river, and then there's like 8 or 9 different food places that are all different again. Then you go inside and back inside, and there's like 4 or 5 different places that are all different. And I was like, I was just like, I just want to eat. I want to try this. I want to eat this. I want to try this. I want to eat that. It was crazy how good the stuff was, man.
I don't know if it's the beignet burger, but I'm looking at them on Google Images, and man, that's.
Oh my God! Dude.
I'm surprised they haven't done like a breakfast sandwich with beignets yet.
Yeah, but here's the thing too: is like, I've never had a praline, cookie before. I didn't know really what it was, and it was out of this world. Like, I'm just like, I can't even, like, I need to come down here just to only eat for a while.
That's what I'm planning on trying to do that sometime soon.
Dude, it was so freaking good, man. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling, and I believe we'll be catching up with Chris Canty. We'll talk with him, ESPN Radio morning show, Unsportsmanlike. So Chris Canty will be our guest coming up next, and then expected to be joined by Michelle Beadle right after Chris Canty. So Chris Canty, Michelle Beadle, and then we'll see who else is going to stop by in that time. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. We head up until 2 o'clock hanging out in New Orleans. Radio Row. It is Super Bowl 59, getting ready for this game coming up on Sunday. Your Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, and a man who's played in one of these games before, Chris Canty. You hear him on ESPN Kansas City in the morning with ESPN and Unsportsmanlike. Chris, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, man.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, and you're with GNC, so what do they got going on?
Oh, well, GNC is all about making sure that you meet your fitness goals. Health is wealth. You got to take care of yourself, and they've been perfecting nutrition for over 90 years, so GNC is where it's at. You can go to your local GNC store or go to GNC.com. There's something for everybody there. They can enhance you in every way, every facet of your life. So that's something that I utilize as a former professional athlete, as somebody that's now in this career. I understand the importance of being able to take care of yourself, and I wouldn't be able to do that without GNC.
What was the transition like for you? I was curious about athletes as they get done playing, because some of them, you get a little bigger, some get svelte and slim down.
I'm trying to go the other way.
Right? It's like, hold on, Jason Kelsey, you were an offensive lineman. Andrew Whitworth, that's not the way you played at, man.
No.
You're so small now. Like when you're playing and your body is sort of like your that's your tool to play the game and the sport in your career, that when you're done, it's not that thing anymore. There's not as much discipline. How difficult is that for athletes to transition?
Oh, it's hard to break those habits, right? And athletes are creatures of habit. So if you're used to eating, 4,000 or 5,000 calorie diets, you got to scale that way
that sounds
back.
So awesome, man.
Exactly. It
so
does. Cool. And you're burning all of that stuff off because of practicing and lifting weights and all of that stuff. But when you get done playing, you can't eat like that.
I think I had 5,000 calories at dinner last night in New Orleans, man.
Yeah.
If you played for
you and me both.
If you retired as a Saint and stayed here in New Orleans, good luck to you.
Yeah, you'd be as big as a house.
You'd
be as big as the Superdome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get back home, man.
Yeah.
I'm just like, sorry, honey, this is what I look like now.
Yeah, so everything that you did with those New Year's resolutions in January is out the window during Super Bowl week.
Just texting her. You know how you said for better or worse?
This is me at my worst after New Orleans.
Sorry about when I come home after what I've been eating. Chris Canty is our guest. You won the Super Bowl with the Giants, and you just missed playing for Steve Spagnuolo as a DC. You guys, ended up crossing paths in Baltimore. But not the DC and not your D-line coach. But what is it about him that players really love playing for him? Like the Chiefs players, all they talk about is Spags, and they got the shirts and Spags we trust and things like that. What is it about him that guys seem to rally around?
Well, it's a couple of things. Number one, he's aggressive, right? Spags is not going to sit on his hands. He's not going to lay back. He's going to dictate the terms of engagement. He's going to be proactive and not reactive. If you think about the nature of defensive players, that's what we are, right? We see ball, we want to hit it.
Yeah.
We're going to bring the fight to the offense. And so I think players on the defensive side of the ball can relate to that in Spags. The other thing that makes him special is that he gives you the answers to the test. You know exactly what you're going to face. You know exactly how the offense is going to attack you, and he has you prepared for it. So it's that level of detail that lets his players go out there, play fast, play free, and give them the opportunities to make game-changing plays.
Well, it's funny because, I was thinking about this the other day and just, what Spags has done and Vic Fangio for the Eagles. And, the term is defense. So, in its nature, you're sort of playing defense and defending and adjusting to what other people are doing. How often do you get a defensive coordinator that can dictate terms?
Let me ask you a question, Jason. Did it look like Spags was adjusting on that 4th and 5 against the Buffalo Bills?
No, that's sort of my point, right?
No.
He dictated to the Bills. It wasn't, well, they're in 12, we got to now change our personnel.
Yeah.
They're in 11, we change our personnel. His term that I've loved, I heard it 4 years ago, him say it, having the chalk last on the chalkboard. Yeah. Which is a great way to describe sort of how he goes about it. We got the chalk last, so we're the ones dictating terms.
1,000%. And here's the thing. When it comes to being able to call a game, it's a skill set that we talk a lot about with offensive coordinators. We don't spend a lot of time talking about it with defensive coordinators, but Spags is masterful at being able to call a game. And I just heard the comments from right guard from the Buffalo Bills, Osiris Torrance, after the AFC Championship game. And one of the things that he pointed out was Spags would show the Cobra Blitz or the corner blitz throughout the course of the game, but never brought it. And he waited for that moment at the end of the game, and the offensive line actually set the protection where the line slid the opposite way because they didn't think Spags would bring it. He hadn't brought it all game. He waited until that moment to bring it out when he needed it the most. In terms of playing the game within the game, the chess match, and understanding how it's being called, how the offense is reacting to it, and then bringing that pressure from an unsuspecting place when you need it the most, where it hits perfectly, that's what separates Spags from all of the other coordinators. Being able to do it that way on the defensive side of the ball. You hear about offenses setting up plays throughout the game, like we're setting up this shot down the field and we're going to pull it out when we need it, or we're setting up this trick play, we're going to pull it out when we need it. You never hear about a defensive coordinator setting up a play or setting up a blitz.
Right.
But that's what Spags did in that moment, and that's what he's always done.
And he's so deferential. He won't take credit for anything. When on opening night, asking him about that, and it's always anytime you try to say something about Spags positive, and you personally, it's always the guys, and we got a lot of great guys. This group of guys are great, and our coaching staff and all of that. And he tried to play it down. He said, that play. He's like, we had three blitz packages and coverage schemes that we had on that play, and it's one I hadn't ran yet. So I hadn't run the play. That's why we were. I'm like, all right. Yeah, all right. I appreciate you doing that, but come on, there's a little more thought.
He's styling on it a little bit.
Yeah, there's a little more thought given to it. Well, we haven't. Let's try this one. We haven't run this one yet. Let's try this blitz right here. The other thing about that play that I thought was interesting is O'Cyrus Torrence. That quote when he was talking about sort of they were setting it up. He also had mentioned at some point in the press conference that they slid the protection left. Chris Jones is over there. Had they slid the protection right and they don't bring it, you've left Chris Jones one-on-one. So now you got two hands on Chris Jones instead of four. So what do you play? It's sort of like pick your poison, right? Mm-hmm. We don't think he's coming, so we're double-teaming Chris Jones. It does make the job a little bit easier for a D coordinator when a guy like Chris Jones is on the field that you can play off of. They're going to have to put four hands on him, so let's play off that.
Yeah. Well, listen, I came out with a list of the top 5 non-quarterbacks in Super Bowl 59, and Chris Jones is at the top of the list. I think Chris Jones is phenomenal. 6 All-Pro teams in 9 seasons in the NFL. I mean, this guy has over 80 sacks as an interior defensive lineman, but he has the versatility where he can play outside. You can play him at any one of those positions on the defensive front, and this guy is going to give it to you at an all-pro level. And when you have a special talent like that, you got to know how to use them. You got to know how to deploy them. They pay guys like Chris Jones what they pay him because they can consistently win one-on-ones.
Yeah.
Now, it's the responsibility of the coordinator to make sure that the guy gets the amount of one-on-ones he needs in order to wreck the game for the opposing offense. And Spags does that at a high level, and we got to credit Chris Jones for never disappointing in those moments. You go back to the Super Bowl last year. I mean, I think it was that third down play in the fourth quarter. Brock Purdy's got an open Deebo Samuel, but he can't hit him in the end zone because Chris Jones is bearing down on him.
Yeah, it was Juwan Jennings.
Yeah,
Juwan Jennings was wide open.
Jennings,
no, you're good. And
Juwan Jennings,
and the right guard was one-on-one with Chris Jones.
Yeah.
And he just beat him.
Exactly.
Just beat him.
Exactly. But those plays happen routinely in the postseason with Chris Jones.
Yeah.
And they don't go down in the stat sheet as a sack, but those are plays that are negatives for the offense because the offense is scheming up shots for those opportunities, and Chris Jones negates that with the pressure.
And against the Buffalo Bills in the divisional round a few weeks before that, Josh, right before they missed the field goal, right before Tyler Bass missed the field goal, Deion Dawkins at left tackle, Chris Jones lined up against him on third down. It's the play that Josh Allen underthrew the guy in the receiver in the end zone. It was wow, he was wide open. Because Chris Jones just walked Deion Dawkins back there and hits Josh Allen's hip as he's throwing it, and it's incomplete. That's back-to-back, not back-to-back, that's divisional round, and then the Super Bowl that were third down plays that Chris Jones came through that kept 2 touchdowns off the board.
Yeah.
Just by him beating his man one-on-one. Chris Canty is our guest. What do you think happens on Sunday?
Well, listen, I don't think it's going to be what we saw in Super Bowl 57. I don't see 70-plus points being scored. I think it'll be a low-scoring affair, and if it's going to be low-scoring and closely contested, how could you bet against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs?
All right, you got Chiefs winning.
You can dislike the Chiefs.
You can hate the Chiefs.
You can hate the Chiefs.
You're gonna have to
deal
with
the
them.
Chiefs, but you're gonna have to deal with the Chiefs.
Chris Canty, Unsportsmanlike, you hear him on ESPN KC every morning right here in Kansas City. Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio. Chris, thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it.
All right,
man.
thanks for having me, Jason. Enjoy the game.
Absolutely, you too. There's Chris Canty. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
the chaos
Yes.
and the mayhem.
I
love it.
It is crazy. Do you love it?
I do. It's, you know what I had, because I'm not a real big vet at Radio Row. This is my second one, like working.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just I'm a little amazed, like how just tons of people. You don't know what everybody's doing. It's mayhem. Oh my God, I'm going to break your equipment.
Is it working? Is there just working? So when you weren't working,
Yeah.
what was just working?
Because one time, or maybe a few times back in the day, I would come to do like promote something stupid, something stupid on Radio Row. So you're only in and out for an hour or so.
Yeah.
Now it's like, ooh, we're in it.
So now you're here.
Yeah.
You're doing your shows, and then you're also going on other shows
Yeah.
as well. You're fully
It's kind of
involved.
fun.
You're doing the whole car wash thing.
I really am. I really.
Yeah.
I'm so proud.
We had Cody on yesterday.
And how was he?
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
He was expectedly good because of the personality that
Yeah.
you sort of going into it. It precedes it. Like you
Did he bring his contraption where he's content creating right now?
No, he did not.
Okay,
No.
good. You guys
we created
were
the
saved.
content on radio. He was not creating the content.
Oh, you
there.
missed out. He's walking around with his nerdy contraption.
Yes.
Bless his heart.
We talked some football with him. We talked some just being a crazy personality with him. We talked some baseball with him because he was with the Royals in the 2016 spring training when they had just won the World Series. So that was kind of cool. And he said that you do not let him talk about anything but Spurs. That was odd.
Yeah,
That's,
he keeps trying to shove this Lakers stuff in my face.
weird.
I'm like, we're not, especially this week. Like, there's nothing to talk
what is
about
there to
with
talk
the
about?
Lakers.
You mean
like, is it?
You say Lakers, but I hear Fox. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Luca, I hear De'Aaron.
My God,
Like,
what a week! What a week,
well,
NBA.
for you guys, right?
It's just, I just
you
think
two.
it's, well, I think it's funny. Like I like to imagine that the leagues have sort of their interpersonal dramas, and so NFL takes Christmas over, so the NBA is like, ha ha, and then they try to one up them. In my mind, that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, so now you got LeBron, or maybe Patrick Mahomes can say, sorry, NBA, Super Bowl weeks for us.
I know.
Like LeBron did on Christmas Day.
Look, I love that LeBron said it. And in spirit, I agreed because I did love the NBA games, oddly, especially the first one. But if we're doing ratings and that's the currency, then it ain't ever happening.
And he did go on the New Heights podcast and said, I know what I said, but y'all got us on
My
Christmas
bad.
Day. It wasn't our day.
It wasn't even close.
Right. I mean, but it's sort of expected,
It's
though,
not
right?
gonna be,
But
yeah.
then you see that, like last year on Christmas Day, they were streamed. I think it was a streaming with the Chiefs and the other NFL games that were on Christmas Day, and the NBA had higher ratings last year than they had this year. Not higher ratings than the NFL, but higher than they were last year. Then this year it's all on the NFL, and the NFL has all these different things, and the NBA has a little bit lower. And it's like, well.
It's crazy.
Let's kind of see or maybe it was flipped. Maybe
I think it's flipped.
Flipped. Yes, Christmas Day this year the NBA had higher ratings because it was on Netflix.
That's
with the
right.
Chiefs and,
That's right.
and Steelers.
Which was,
there.
I didn't even look at.
I'll figure it out eventually.
I know. I even went to a Christmas Day.
I cover the team. It's fine.
The streaming is. It's a lot for our brains to have to wrap around. We're going to get there. At some point, this will all be second nature. We're not there yet.
maybe one day. Michelle Beadle is our guest. Is it second nature, sort of hosting podcasts and shows and things that you've done your whole career? Really?
No, I love it. Like I like that I still get a little TV with the FanDuel stuff, and it's all NBA. So it's like, all right, I'm getting my fix.
Yeah.
But I love radio because it's just more casual and free. And I don't. Believe it or not, I don't like sitting in a hair and makeup chair at all. I love the hair and makeup women. I just don't want to sit there. So it's like, ooh, radio, just show up.
Great.
A little chapstick, and you call it a day.
Although now radio is all on too. Like
I know.
we got the streaming, we got the video
I know.
going on. So
and
it's
every
all-
time you see it, you're like, I probably should have cared more. But it's all right. Tomorrow's a new day.
I should have showered in the last 3 days.
I
I had said I was going to yesterday.
New Orleans.
but,
It's humid.
That's a great
That's the
point.
point.
We were sort of joking about that, where the Chiefs, the last few years that they have been in the Super Bowl, we can compare these now. Like in Vegas, they were off the Strip, and in Phoenix, they were off in the desert. Like here. You're 25 feet from Bourbon Street. If you want to get in some trouble, you can get in some trouble in New Orleans if you want to.
I mean, they're such pros, though.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
Both
there's a part
teams
of me.
are gonna-
I know. It's part of me is like, oh, do they have one wild card that's just going to be? No, I think they're both legitimately professional squads.
What do you think nationally the story or the feeling and the interest is of this game? It feels like heading into the playoffs, and certainly last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago, this was the matchup that was least wanted.
Correct.
by everybody,
No, you're
Eagles and
right.
Chiefs.
Look, I don't have a football team. It used to be the Jets, and we broke up, and that's fine. So I'm sort of I am that demo, the demo that's like, I kind of want something fresh, something new, something like a Commanders-Bills situation, if you will. And I think some people took that personally. I was like, oh, I have no issue with either one of these teams. And look, and it's a rematch, and Jalen Hurts is very still much thinking about losing before. And then from all accounts, Patrick Mahomes has the craziest version of a Patrick Mahomes intensity level face. So I'm like, well, that's a little bit terrifying. And, nobody, unless it's your team, loves the dynasty. This is what we do. We hated the Warriors. Some people hated the Bulls, which is sacrilegious, but they did in the 90s. Like, we just don't. It's like, you're great, we want to support you, and now you've gone too far. Now you're too good, and we don't like it. So it's interesting to me, which, and then there's the Pat Riley of it all, which I did not realize till this week, that he will be rich if the three-peat happens. Oh, richer, I should. It's not struggling now.
One of the greatest copyrights ever.
Oh, my gosh.
Three-peat. I mean,
The
just
man.
like to think that far ahead of three-peat there, and it's happened in so many different sports. Never happened in the NFL, and now it's like, okay, is it a Chiefs-peat? Is it? Some people have called it a threed-peat for Andy Reid.
Oh, I like that.
So, like, what do you sort of call it? That's not three-peat, so you can put it on a shirt and not have to pay Pat Riley.
Did someone trademark three-to-peat already? Because that is brilliant.
Hold on, not
I
yet.
right. We got
on that real quick. Let me go to the
trademark.org,
patent.com.gov.
I don't even know how you start.
Maybe that is. I'll just call my local congressman.
Please,
They'll get right on it.
They're known to be quick.
Nothing else going on right now, so it's all good. They've got plenty of stuff to cover.
That's all they got going
handle here.
I love that.
I think it's funny too. Like in Kansas City, certainly we are fully immersed in it.
Sure.
That one of the things that we've been talking about and sort of coming to the sort of realization that I now know how annoyed Patriots fans were all the years when it was everything but how good they were.
Yep.
Well, you cheat, and it's deflated, and Tom Brady's protected,
Yep.
and you got this, and it's like, come on. I mean, yes, it's a dynasty, but, like, you don't really think it's – and now it's like – oh, okay, now I know what they're like, because, I'm watching every single game, and I watch it 2 or 3 times in the week, and I hear they get all the calls and this, and I'm like, well, actually, this call, that where, I've got all these videos and stuff, but you just ignore. I sent you that video, and you didn't care about that one. It wasn't a big play because it was a random play on 2nd and 10 that resulted in a 40-yard play that was a missed call, but that didn't matter. But if it was the Chiefs, and so I get it. I understand it, and there's a part of me that feels bad for hating the Patriots at that time, but most of me is like, no, I don't feel bad for hating the Patriots because it was a dynasty at the time. I'm just more enjoying now knowing what it's like to be on this side of it, going 25 years without the Chiefs ever winning a home playoff game.
That's what I'm saying. If you're hated for like these types of reasons, not because you're a horrible person or team or people, this is the good reason to be hated. Like I've always thought, like as a Spurs fan, we had a dynasty running for a minute, and it was like, I don't care. I don't care if everyone hates them. No, we're boring. All right, cool. I'll snore myself to another awesome parade. Like,
that was
it's fine.
I hate the Spurs because they're boring.
They're boring. There's
boring.
always like a thing. And yours, the Chiefs is now the refs. Well, the refs want it. The league wants it, which
they're winning close games, and it's not even entertaining anymore.
They're not even that good this year.
Right. They're frauds, really.
They don't need to be. Look, I'm looking at the Celtics. Like, are they about to do the exact same thing where they're just going to like kind of just chill their way and then remind everyone at the end when it matters that, oh, yeah, we are still the best? Kind of feels like it. Like, I don't have an issue with it. So, I wouldn't be shocked. I just want a good game.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be one of those games where we look back and we're like, well, the halftime was fun. Like, I don't want that.
It's the Chiefs. It'll be a close game.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not putting money on it. I'm going to enjoy it.
I think it was, there were, Mahomes at one point this year, maybe it was after the Chiefs banked in the field goal against the Chargers. One of these crazy games. So they banked in the field goal against the Chargers, and Mahomes after the game was like, yeah, we're going to try to not have these close games every week. I'm like, you fool. Don't lie to yourself.
No.
You can lie to other people. Don't lie to yourself.
It's so glorious.
You know you're going to have a close game next week. It's just what you do.
Well, that's the one thing the Eagles don't. They're like, we have 2 scores. You have to have 2 scores.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, it's done. We won't even watch the last quarter if that's the case. Because we already know what's going to happen.
It is one of those things like, are we waiting for the Chiefs to finally win one by a wide margin? I don't think it's going to be in the Super Bowl because the Eagles are too good. But it just feels like if it comes down to a late play in the game, it's hard to go against the Chiefs, and I know that I'm fully immersed in it, but it's just like they just find a way to make the plays, and I understand why it's boring for other people because they have changed the way that I have watched regular season games.
Okay.
I am so much more calm and relaxed just watching Chiefs games because it's like they're going to win.
This is like when you're a nervous flyer and all of a sudden a pilot has explained to you everything about turbulence, and now you're just like, we're fine.
Okay,
We're fine.
Last year changed the way they went. They were like 11-5 or 11-6 after they lost to the Raiders, and then they went on the road and won the Super Bowl. And I'm like, never again. Like it doesn't matter what they do in the regular season. It all is about the. So I'm watching the games this year. Oh, it's close. Oh, they'll win. Oh, see, told you, son. They're going to kick a field goal here.
It's a lovely when your team has that. When that's the power that they have, the magic. That's a beautiful place to be. You're like, it's cool. It's fun.
How do you? Why do you think that is? Maybe. I mean, you were a fan of a dynasty of the Spurs, and Was it about that every year it sort of built on itself, that they had been here, there was another team that was trying to rise up and beat them, but they were sort of like, this is fine, we know what's going on, we've been here, done this, we understand this game or game 3 or leading up to game 4, what this means, where the other team is like, oh, this is the first experience of a game 3.
They get
This is our
rattled.
first experience of a game 5.
Which is why I think, as much as we were sort of, we don't want this matchup again, blah, 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 that's actually why it should be looked at as an exciting matchup for that very reason. Because the Eagles know exactly who they're up against. They've done this before. And so in that way, maybe that will provide the excitement or a little bit of the unknown that we're so desperately craving. Because, there is something about, Tom Brady had that same quality. If there were 2 minutes left on the clock, we all knew what was going to happen. It didn't matter. We're just like, well, they're going to win.
Right.
And that's 100% what you got now with Mahomes, which is interesting. And I like talking to former Patriots. Like, I asked Julian Edelman, I was like, do you secretly, you guys have a thread that is just anti-Kansas City? Because, you don't want them to ever be in the exact same conversation. He's like, no, we just love watching great football. And I'm like,
yeah, are you
come
sure
on,
about that?
dude. No, you don't.
I did appreciate Julian coming out and saying, like, the ref stuff is stupid. Like,
yes.
stop talking about the ref stuff, I mean, it's just...
It's boring.
Right. It does get boring. And I loved Travis Kelce last night when he was asked, what would be a question to the media for you? And he said, why are you guys leaning into the ref stuff?
Okay.
I get it, Joe Football Twitter guy is conspiracy, but you, the main media, why are you guys leaning into this conspiracy or rigged or anything? Like,
but rigged for who? Like, why would they want it?
Why we had Clark Hunt on yesterday, the chairman and CEO of the Chiefs, and I asked him, and he was very candid. I said, so what were the meetings like with the owners when you guys decided to rig it for the Chiefs? And he said, you know what, they were all very nice. It was very cool that the owners were okay with that, for Kansas City to have their turn, and it was pretty cool of how okay they were with us rigging it, because that's what it would take, is the other owners going,
why?
Yeah, the Chiefs, let's do it.
I mean, this would be the biggest conspiracy of conspiracies, and I can't understand why they would want it. Like, and the Taylor Swift stuff, who cares? I could not possibly care less.
But also, people were complaining about the James Bradbury and Juju Smith-Schuster holding call against the Eagles 6 months before Kelce met Taylor Swift. We hadn't met Taylor Swift yet.
Now we just added a layer to this whole thing.
I know. Well, now it's Taylor Swift. Really? Because it wasn't Taylor Swift when Bradbury got called for the hold. So it's just, it's one of those things. You find ways to win close games. And there are some calls that go their way, certainly. But there are calls that haven't necessarily gone their way over these games. And
how do you think the refs feel that are coming into this game? Like,
I've wondered.
Pressure.
I brought it up with I can't remember who it was, a guest a couple of weeks ago leading into the Bills game. Kendall Gammon, former Kansas City Chief, greatest long snapper that ever lived.
Awesome.
And I asked him, and I said, you're friends with a few referees. This all talk this week after the Texans is all about the Chiefs get the calls, Chiefs get the calls. Will that seep into their mind or where they'll be looking? And he said, the only reason I say no is these guys are graded on every single play. And if they let that part of, I don't want Johnny on Twitter saying that I'm favoring the Chiefs, so I'm going to let this go. Well, now you're not graded fair, or you're not graded the way that you would want to be graded, and now you're not advancing. Now you're not doing a divisional round next year or a championship game next year. I said, that would make sense.
Makes sense.
It makes sense, but the human nature would also have me wondering what an official would do if, no, they're saying I'm cheating for the Chiefs. Bleep you. There's a holding call on the Chiefs.
Like, I'm almost overcompensating because I'm very aware of the eyes.
Right, the human nature.
It's hard, and they're getting killed week in, week out.
Yeah,
so.
I just think that, oftentimes the refs aren't very good at what they do sometimes.
Just get robots. Where are we on the robots is what I want to know.
That's exactly right. Let's do that. Michelle Beadle and Decker, Sirius XM Mad Dog Radio. Who wins on Sunday?
Oh, I'm looking at a giant red band. I think the Eagles figure it out.
Okay.
I'm not putting money on it, though. just for the record.
No, it's all good. We'll write you down. Eagles winning.
What's the tally?
So far, it's 3-1.
Am I the one?
You're the one.
God bless me.
But you know what? It's been, I'll be honest with you, it's been sort of a cop-out.
Yeah.
Like everyone has been. I don't know who to pick, but I'm going to defer to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs finding a way to win this one. I understand that.
Which is going to happen.
Yeah, but it's a little bit of a, I don't know. I can't tell you specifically how the refs are doing it. I'm not going to point out a specific play, but I'm just telling you the refs are favoring the Chiefs. All right. I'm not going to tell you why or how or what I think is going to happen if they win. It's a coin flip. I'm just going to defer to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
What an exhausting argument. Did Cody lie and say Chiefs?
Cody said Chiefs, yeah.
Oh, he's a liar.
Yeah.
He's been telling, you know what?
Said,
I'll deal with him.
He said, of course I'm going to go. Are you kidding me? He's like, they win every game.
What are you, a chameleon? just fit in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he put on his Royals jersey
Thank
from 16 and said Chiefs.
Then he walks over to the
go.
Eagles side, and he's like, "Oh, you guys are awesome."
I'm so tired of the refs working things for the Chiefs. Are you kidding me?
He should
This
run
is
for offense.
ridiculous.
That is gross.
Michelle, thank you so much for
Thank
stopping
you.
by. I appreciate it.
Appreciate
Great
you guys.
Big fan. Michelle Beadle and Decker, Sirius XM Mad Dog Radio. We'll take a timeout, come back. More Zone from Radio Row in New Orleans next.
You're in the zone on Sports
on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. We are hanging out on Radio Row, and it is in New Orleans, and we are getting closer and closer to Super Bowl 59. Joining us now from Westwood One, Scott Graham, pre-half, post, 16th straight Super Bowl, NFL Insider, NFL Preview. Did I miss anything there?
Honestly, I got so many jobs. You could keep going for a long time, and but yeah, that's all part of it, and it's so much fun being back and doing this again because each year is a different. Oh wait, each year isn't a different story. The Chiefs win every year, but
maybe yeah.
Each year is a different story, and even the Chiefs are a different story than the one they were last year. It's so much fun being around this and watching the evolution of how this works. It's a blast.
I meant to introduce you as now we're back here in the zone, and it's presented by Intuit TurboTax by Barbasol. And now your host, Scott Graham.
From our Westwood One studios.
Yes.
There you go.
Very good. Love it. Does the season just fly by for you with all of the things you're doing week in and week out? It's like, all right, this is week 8 NFL Insider, NFL Preview. Now we're doing Thursday night and Sunday night. All right, now it's week 9.
There are parts of it that do. In the beginning, it kind of takes its time getting started because once we finish this broadcast on Sunday, we're not doing anything football-wise until the Pro Football Hall of Fame game. So when you get back into the regular season and the grind again, it's oh, that's right. We have to do that, And gee, I forgot they were going to start playing football this year. But once you get past those first couple of weeks, then you're moving, and then it does go by quickly. And you look up and say, "I can't believe we're in week 11 already," or whatever that is. And when you have a fun season where there's a lot of good things going on, that even speeds up the process more.
How much do you learn as the season goes along, you personally, with, you sit down with Ross Tucker with the NFL previews and the NFL Insider, you get to talk to players, and this week you had a long conversation with Steve Spagnuolo, and obviously he's been a big conversation over this playoff run for the Chiefs. How much as the season goes along do you learn from, all right, this player said that, okay, here's an inside sort of thought process as this player. You had George Kittle and Cooper DeJean on. Here's what Spagnuolo was talking about. I thought it was interesting when Spag said, it's like, well, no, I'm not necessarily saving that blitz. He's like, we got a group of them for third down. We got a group of them for, goal line and red zone. We just hadn't used that one yet.
And that's why I ask the questions, because sometimes when I'm asking a question, I know the answer, and I'm trying to get the person to tell everybody else the answer that I already know. Then there's other times where I'm asking just like you, and that was one of them. That blitz happened, and it was not a blitz that had happened at any point in the game. And with the game on the line, fourth quarter, AFC Championship game, that's what you dial up, and completely flummoxed what the Bills were doing. That's why I wanted to know. And he's like, no, I didn't purposely do it. Well, I'm not sure I believed that.
I don't know.
But what I will tell you is his ability to break down the opposition and find out where pressure comes and how to disguise that pressure and the timing of it, it's genius. And you just put your finger on what I think is maybe the biggest part of this game, because if the Chiefs get home on Jalen Hurts, that changes everything. No Saquon Barkley's running the ball, I get it. If they get home on Jalen Hurts, that changes everything. If the Chiefs don't get home on Jalen Hurts, they've got a little bit more of a problem, I think, than the folks in Kansas City realize, because there's a lot of weapons on this Eagles offense that are largely untapped right now. And last week, all of a sudden, oh, that's right, A.J. Brown can have 100 yards receiving.
Yeah.
Devontae Smith hasn't been involved at all. Dallas Goedert, right. So, and Hurts running the ball himself. There's a lot of things that could go there. I think that pressure is really a key to taking the Eagles off their game and off their staying on schedule downs.
I've appreciated over the last couple of weeks a lot of the national and locally too, how much that Steve Spagnuolo in real time is getting his flowers and people appreciating what he does and how big of a part of this dynastic run that he has been. Because last year we're saying, boy, was that the worst Chiefs team we've seen win the Super Bowl? Well, it was their best defensive team. So we say, was it their worst team? Well, yeah, because the offense was down. But it was their best defensive team. So as a team, was it their worst team? Or did they fall back a little on offense but picked up more on the defensive side, which is where Steve Spagnuolo would come into the conversation?
conversations in the last few days with Nick Bolton, with Trent McDuffie, they all point back to Super Bowl 57, giving up 35 points in that game, winning the game, but getting back and saying we can't be that anymore. And that is when a lot of the changes came as to what type of a defense this was. And talking to Trent McDuffie, Bolton, Chris Jones, any of these guys, mention Spags' name, and their faces light up.
Yeah.
You don't see that all the time with players. But in this case, you do. When you bring up Spags' name, there's either a twinkle, a smile, an eye roll from a funny story. But that is a very, very cohesive group, and Spags is a big part of the reason why it got them this far. 32 points they scored against Buffalo is the most points they've scored all year. It's gotten them this far. They need to be able to turn up the pressure to get it one more time and figure out a way for Patrick to win the game.
A couple to branch off of with that. When you mention those guys that those defensive leaders, and after that Super Bowl win against the Eagles 38-35, what does that say maybe about the culture or the organizational expectation where they win the Super Bowl, but in doing so the defense gives up 35 points. That game was going, and yet they come away with that going, we got to make some changes here. Like, this has to be different. We cannot. Usually after a loss, you say, we got to make some changes because we can't win if we keep doing this.
I think there's a difference between teams that win and teams that dominate. And I think you just put your finger on it. The fact that they have the ability, and they've had the ability to keep a lot of pieces together to get young players involved and get them up to speed when they've needed to do that. But the constant through all of this, of course, is Andy Reid.
Yeah.
And the other constant through all this is Patrick Mahomes. And that is a marriage made in heaven. So you put that together on one side. If you figure out a way to get your and I think there still will be days while Patrick is the quarterback and Andy is the head coach where Patrick is potentially, going for 5,000 yards in a season. Maybe not 5,000, but
yeah,
we could see another one of those, run at 50 touchdown type of things for him. It's not right now. And the fact that it's not right now, and this organization understood, we've got to balance that out and get more from the defense. That's why they're here again and again and again.
No doubt you recognize the voice. Scott Graham, Westwood One, is our guest. The sort of juxtaposition between these two teams from when they met a couple of years ago to now, and I think is sort of going to the Chiefs and continuing to win. We talk about Steve Spagnuolo, Andy Reid, and one thing that's been really interesting and really surprising to a degree is when teams win and they win constantly and consistently, don't they typically have their coaching staffs picked apart? Don't you? We're going to take this defensive line coach and make him our DC. We're going to take this defensive backs coach and make him our DC. We're going to take this OC and make him our head coach. We're going to take this wide receivers coach or QB coach and make him our OC. Yet the Chiefs almost have the exact same coaching staff intact from 2 years ago to now on both sides of the ball. And I'm not sure the Eagles on defense have any of the coaches that were there in 2022 for this team that are coaching this year.
So much has changed with the Eagles coaching staff. And you got to remember, people have kind of turned the page on this. Last year for the Eagles was a disaster. They were 10-1 to start the season. They were one of the best teams in football. They beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And then nothing.
Yeah.
And less than nothing. Because they went backwards.
Yeah.
And they got bounced out in the first round in embarrassing fashion against Tampa. They changed coordinators this year, and Vic Fangio has made the defense exactly what he thinks he can make it. That works. Kellen Moore has run the offense the way that they saw the strength. Well, you don't have to be, a genius necessarily to give the ball to Saquon Barkley, but figuring out a way to maximize what they do beyond that, Kellen Moore's done a good job of that. To your point, Kellen Moore's probably not going to be a part of the Eagles after Sunday.
Yeah.
So, those kinds of things happen. Turnover happens. The fact that it hasn't for the Chiefs, one more area of, wow, this is a special time in Kansas City.
That last part about Saquon, you did the preseason games for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Baltimore is a team that we've talked about all season long because there was a chance they were going to face against them in the playoffs, and they played in week 1. And my view of Baltimore was like I'm not looking at week one at all because the way the offensive line, the way they're using Derrick Henry, the way Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, their relationship has grown. It's a different offense and a different running game in week 16 and 17 than it was in week one. What is that for the Eagles from early in the season to now? Saquon, the offensive line, understanding each other, Jalen and Kellen Moore and Saquon sort of understanding what makes him tick. How much is that more of a cohesive sort of in-concert type feel with everybody on the same page?
Something happened that I still don't know, and I don't know that we're ever going to know entirely because we weren't in the locker room. Something happened in that bye week. They were 2-2. They had a bye week in week 5. And something happened in terms of their commitment to changing to emphasize their strengths on both sides of the ball. And after that bye, they were the number one scoring defense in the NFL for the rest of the year, the number one total yards allowed defense in the NFL for the rest of the year from that point on. And Saquon Barkley went off, and their run percentage, I mean, they've had a top 10 rushing offense 3 years in a row, but their percentage of runs became even higher. And, Saquon's getting 2.5 something yards before contact when he gets the ball. That's insane.
Yeah.
I could run for 9 that way, 5. But, I think when you realize what you have in front of you, then it's time to tweak it to the point where, okay, we are definitively back to Nick Sirianni's first playoff team. We are a run-first team. That's what we are. Keep an eye out, though, as they hit that fourth down pass to A.J. last week in the game against Washington. And Jalen said afterwards, just because we don't do it doesn't mean we can't do it.
Yeah, that pass, I talked about it last week. We were just discussing the games. I'm like, that fourth down pass may have changed the entire complexion of the game.
Backbreaker. It was a backbreaker.
They had Washington just scored.
Yep.
They went for 2, didn't get it. 4th and 5 at midfield. There was like 2.5 minutes to go in the half. They
Maybe
would
get
the
another
ball back
score.
at midfield. I mean, they complete that. And just a dime from Jalen Hurts. Just dropped it right in the bucket. And one thing that's sort of not discussed enough is that A.J. Brown's just running, and Lattimore doesn't know the ball is coming because it's not until the last split second A.J. sticks his hands out and catches it. Like, that's something small like that. If he starts his hands out and is waiting for it, Lattimore can either turn his head and see it coming or try to time it with the ball coming there. Lattimore didn't know the ball was coming. It was just perfectly executed. And that's two guys that, whether they like each other or not, on that play they worked really well together.
Well, you know what? They will tell you that is overblown.
Yeah.
They will tell you that. Again, I can't tell you that I have any inside information on that kind of thing, but I think that Jalen thinks a lot of the questions about his relationships with people really don't have any bearing on anything, and that he's just fine with people that people don't think that he is. That part I don't know. What I can tell you is that play, in my opinion, I think the Eagles were likely to win that game anyway, but that was the backbreaker.
Yep, absolutely. Scott Graham, Westwood One, pre, half, post, 16th straight Super Bowl, NFL Insider, NFL Preview, and many other things as well. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Enjoy listening to you as well, and certainly the people driving around know the voice of Scott Graham. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. There's Scott Graham. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. All right, folks, Jason Anderson from my friends over at Heartland Men's Health. And look, if you are a guy that is in your 30s, All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, hanging out in New Orleans. Radio Row getting closer to Super Bowl Sunday. Our coverage all over the airwaves this weekend and certainly this week. And one of the men that certainly we follow and talk to, get a chance to throughout the football season is Sam Monson, now with the 33rd team, joining us. And check the mic with Sam and Steve Palazzolo, that podcast that's really, really good. Sam, thank you so much for joining us, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
How's this week been for you? I mean, I know you guys have your own stuff to do, but then you're also bouncing around and going on shows like this and presenting your knowledge to different cities.
Yeah, that's fun, obviously, going on all these other places. It's new for us this year because we're not at PFF anymore. We're out on our own with the 33rd team, and we no longer have to sort of, we got to get 3 shows out of this week. What's it going to look like and stress that way. We're just like, we're coming here for the week. We're going to do, some hits, go and talk to other people. But then we're also just capturing a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff, just sort of filming what it's like being in this crazy house, this Radio Row stuff, and putting that out, for our fans to see on YouTube and kind of get an experience of what the Super Bowl week looks like.
How's it been over at the 33rd team? I mean, they are starting to gain some traction.
Yeah, it's been great. Can't say enough good things about those guys. It was a difficult kind of decision for us to go out on our own, and those guys have been phenomenal, whether it's the guy kind of running the place, the COO, Mark, whether it's Janko, our producer, and obviously the fans that came with us. I mean, without those guys, it would have been a lot harder.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the Check the Mic podcast, Sam Monson, Steve Palazzolo. And anybody out here, I mean, they can't really miss Steve.
No.
So, I mean, you see him walking around.
It's such an advantage. Steve, for anyone that doesn't know, is 6'10", and it looks ridiculous because I'm 5'11", and nobody believes that because they just see me standing next to him the whole time. But it's funny because people remember him. People that have met him once 5 years ago remember Steve because he's 6'10" with a Jerry curl, right?
Right.
And
Curly
it's like
hair.
Immediately you remember him. It's such an advantage in this world.
Yes.
Whereas me, I could have met this guy 3 times. It's like, nobody remembers the regular sized guy.
But the accent helps you, though. So
The accent's kind of gone now, though. It's like
really?
it's pretty much disappeared.
Really? So, I mean, is there, when you get around old friends, does it come back like that?
A little bit, but I was on. There's Pro Football Ireland down at the other end of this thing. I mean, they wouldn't recognize this as an Irish accent.
Really?
Yeah.
What would they think it is? Just
American.
Just American.
It's just a different brand of American.
You're not really from Ireland,
Right.
are you? Come on, no, don't lie to us. What do you think of this matchup? We're talking about it obviously in Kansas City and from a specific standpoint of the Chiefs, but from the outsider's view, what do you make of this matchup now? A rematch of a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've been kind of saying it's the matchup nobody wanted, right? It's Kansas City, the new dynasty. Everyone's getting sick of it already. It's Philadelphia, the one team that nobody sort of really wanted to see take them on. On the other hand, I think it probably is the 2 best teams in the NFL right now going up against each other in the Super Bowl. So from that standpoint, you can't ask for a better matchup.
Yeah.
Whether or not there was a better team in the totality of the season this year, right now, I think these are the 2 best teams in football. The Chiefs have gotten healthier. They've gotten a ton of guys back. The same thing with the Eagles. They are a better team now than they were in September.
Yeah.
So I think we're talking about the best possible matchup on paper. And what is really a coin flip? I mean, the point spread has been like 1.5 points.
Yeah.
Hasn't moved. It's basically Vegas saying this is a coin flip as well. And it's a coin flip where your default position is we're going to go with Mahomes because we've seen it. It happens over and over again. But I think it's 2 really good teams who are very closely matched, and it should be a great game.
Is this the best? Because we've been talking about like that 2022 Eagles team and this Eagles team. And certainly San Francisco last year was a good team. 2019 San Francisco, they got beat pretty good by Tampa Bay. Is this the best sort of overall team, talent-wise, that the Chiefs have played in the Super Bowl?
It certainly could be. I mean, it's difficult because so much of that Philadelphia team is very young now. They've you look at kind of the roster or the starters from the last time versus this time, it's very different. They've turned over that starting unit a lot, particularly on defense. And only really have a few incumbents still there. So, but guys like Jalen Carter has emerged as a superstar. The rookies this year, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean in the secondary have both been fantastic and really important parts of that defense. So, if they are for real and not just having a kind of one good season right at the start of their career, which is always a bit of an unknown until we see it, then, if that's going to be their baseline, then this is probably the best team that overall that the Chiefs have faced. If, however, this is just those guys are all having an amazing, early run, then maybe they regress a little bit, and it was sort of a bit of a false dawn.
What have you seen from Jalen Hurts? Because it doesn't feel like he's the same quarterback he was 2 years ago, the way that he's playing this year. What's going on? Is it the knee? Is it? He said they took the straitjacket. They took the straitjacket off him, which is an interesting commentary from a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he's been banged up a little bit. That's always a factor. I do think he hasn't been as good this year as he's been previously. On the other hand, they got Saquon Barkley now, so they haven't needed him to be.
Yeah.
And he does have, I think, a little bit of that thing that great quarterbacks have, and Mahomes is the best example of this, of a guy who hits the important time and a switch flips, and suddenly he's playing the best version of his football. And Mahomes in particular, the thing that characterizes his postseason play is he just stops making mistakes. Gets to the playoffs, and a switch flips, and his turnover-worthy play rate, his interception rate, it all just plummets. And you're not going to get the free plays that you might get in a random game in October where he might mail you an interception, right? I think there's a little bit about that to Jalen Hurts as well, that he is a big game player. It's just he's coming from a lower starting point. You know, he's not as good as Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or some of these other quarterbacks, but he's an incredibly good athlete. He's a really dynamic rushing threat. You've got the tush-push play, which is still extremely difficult to stop. And he is able to elevate his game, I think, in the biggest situations. So he can kind of come some way towards bridging that gap to those great quarterbacks.
It's funny because we have Sam Munson's our guest from Check the Mike podcast. He and Steve Palazzolo, but the 33rd team. We have these great quarterbacks that can make phenomenal plays, and Patrick Mahomes highlight reel, Jalen Hurts highlight reel. But it almost feels like in today's day and age, like we were getting ready for the Buffalo Bills game, and it was like, you know, coming down to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and who doesn't make a huge mistake. It's so, like, it's been the commentary around the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes is going to make that big play, which he does. But is there an element now of, like, today's football, or, you know, back in the day it was always turnovers, and then it was big plays, offense, big plays. We're seeing defense sort of catch up and make you drive methodically and go 17 plays like the Commanders did to kick a field goal. Is it now coming back to, while these are two superstar quarterbacks that can make phenomenal plays and throws, that whoever doesn't make the big mistake might be the one that wins on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I think really it's always just been about the high leverage plays, right? And previously that was turnovers, and then offenses got so efficient that it sort of stopped being turnovers because nobody was really committing them as much. Now I think what you're seeing is almost this return to high leverage plays, just in a slightly different way. Sometimes it's turnovers, and a team like the Eagles are extremely good at forcing those. You know, as a defense, they are great at that peanut punch play, coming in and punching the ball loose in the process of the tackle. They did it. They forced 3 fumbles against Washington. One of them was just a return man running into a brick wall, but the other 2 were legitimate punches of the football that knocked that loose. So they're very good at that. And then the other thing is those fourth down decisions, right? As teams go for fourth downs more and more, you are now putting a bunch of those plays on the table where, okay, a lot of them they're converting, and those are good. They extend drives, they keep it going, and you're creating points that way. But every one of those you miss and you fail on is effectively a turnover. It's a turnover on downs, but it's the same thing. You are giving the opposition the football because you failed on that play. So I think we're seeing like a return to this focus on these high leverage plays. They're just slightly different than, you know, oh, look, there's a terrible decision. An interception has been thrown right to a linebacker.
Yeah, I was talking about that with the turnover differential and the game against the Bills, that the Chiefs lost the turnover game. They were -1, but they also forced 2 different turnover on downs. And it was like, you know, if, let's say on 4th and 5, when they blitz Josh Allen, if he throws the ball deep and Brian Cook jumps in front and intercepts the ball and falls down there, that's actually a worse result than actually the ball falling incomplete. But it would count as a turnover and be like, well, see, they were even on the turnover differential. Well, no, it was better that they didn't get a turnover on that particular play.
I mean, I think now with the kind of explosion of teams going for it on 4th down, we should be factoring those plays into the turnover margin. You know, if we're going to talk about who has won the turnover battle, you know, +1, -2, whatever, you need to factor in those 4th down calls because, as you said, somehow, despite, you know, Josh Allen opening the game, like throwing the ball to Chiefs players left, right, and center, you're right. On the old way of looking at it, the Chiefs lost the turnover battle 1-0, but they did get those plays, which offsets that, more than offsets that.
Sam Munson's our guest from the 33rd team. Check the Mike podcast. A couple of quick ones for you. Do the Chiefs hold things back? Do you think play calling, schemes, formations? How much is it that, and how much is it that they're still continually in the lab developing things as the weeks go along for specific game plan type offensive schemes.
Yeah, it's hard to know whether they're legitimately like, here's a whole section of stuff we're not going to touch until we hit January, and how much of it is they're just really good at breaking tendencies. Like, they know the way most teams scout opponents, and they're like, look, they are going to look at this, so all we need to do in this situation is do the opposite, do something we haven't done before, and simply go in a different direction. So I think it's probably more of the latter, but I do think that they are willing to go into the playoffs and run something that they haven't run yet this season. You know, whether it's not necessarily it's a conscious decision all the way through the year, like we're not touching this until it really matters, but they, unlike a lot of other teams, I mean, Buffalo is a great example. You know, they're like, this is our best play in short yardage, and this is what we're running. You're like, but they know you're running that.
Yeah,
I mean,
going to the left.
It's a huge advantage of stopping that play. Whereas Kansas City is willing to go, we're going to roll out Mahomes in a way we've not done all the way through this season just because we haven't done it. Because it's the last thing they're going to be expecting. That's more powerful than the fact that whether or not it's our best play. I think that is a real edge because I think they're right. I think that is more important and more powerful than simply running the thing you think you do best when you're telegraphing it.
Well, and then hearing Travis Kelce on his podcast saying that of that diamond formation, the two tight ends with Kareem Hunt behind Patrick Mahomes, and then the first play was Pacheco behind Patrick Mahomes. They handed off on the first drive, and Pacheco gains like 4 yards on it, that specific play. The next time they run it is the touchdown to Kareem Hunt. The next time they run it, Mahomes pulls it, the touchdown there. They ran the play 3 times, 3 different ways. And Travis Kelce saying they put that play in on Wednesday.
Right.
And he was like, oh, man, this is going to be awesome. This is going to hit. I know this is going to hit. But they put it in on Wednesday. They ran it 3 times. They gained 4 yards and then 2 touchdowns out of it. And it's not something that was an install back in August with this team.
And it's something that the opposition hasn't seen.
Yeah.
So each one of them is a new situation. And when you've got, multiple iterations of the same look that they've never seen before.
Never seen before, yeah.
It's so much like the confusion that must sow versus, the opposite approach of like, this is the same thing we've seen 15 times this season. We know what they're doing. It's literally just a case of whether we can hold up against it.
Sam Munson's our guest. Last one. Who do you think wins on Sunday?
Look, the Vegas line has been that 1.5 line, which basically means Vegas thinks it's a coin flip, and in a coin flip, you default to Kansas City and Mahomes and Andy Reid because they're the team that's done it over and over again. I'm pretty much in line with them. I think it's a really close game, and in a really close game, I'm going with the team that has the psychological history of doing it time and time again. I mean, in a world where, sports psychology is all about visualizing the thing you want to do, so that by the time you get to it, you're not overthinking it. You've already lived it in your head. Well, they've literally lived it. I mean, this team has done it. They're going for a three-peat. Everybody pretty much on that roster has been there and done that in a way nobody on the Eagles has. So that, I think, has to be an advantage. Whether it's a 2 percentage point advantage, a 10, whatever it is, there's an edge there.
Yeah. Sam Munson, the 33rd team. Check the Mike podcast with Steve Palazzolo. Sam, thank you so much for stopping by. Big fan, and I appreciate the time today.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right, there's Sam Munson. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone right after this. All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, hanging out here at Radio Row Super Bowl 59. Very pleased to be joined by a man who was one of the biggest stars heading into the NFL and played a number of years there with the Cleveland Browns. It is Bernie Kosar is our guest here in the zone. Bernie, how are you, sir?
Jason, good to be with you today.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. You come around to these things a lot, and you're here at Super Bowl and Radio Row. What's this week like for you as somebody who played the game, been around, and knowing what some of these guys are going through, and the players and sort of that fraternity that's there with a number of these guys here?
Wow, Jason, you articulated it beautiful, especially with that last phrase of the fraternity of the guys. And it's an emotional week as a guy who's super blessed to have played in a national championship game in 1983 and now show my age, a Super Bowl and get a ring in 1993 with the Cowboys. And the reality and intensity and focus that you really need to have as a football team. And as an old man now in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter of my life, I still like to reflect on my playing days like that. But again, to your last statement of the fraternity, it's kind of cool here in the fourth quarter of your life to be here with a lot of my old teammates and ex-guys that you played against. Because like myself, and we were talking off air, our health and wellness, some of the TBI, CTE, cognitive decline, whatever your acronym is for some of the neurological issues that we have. I wish I was embellishing. I wish I was saying it to you just so you felt sorry for us. But unfortunately, it's really real. So I've been able as a guy, bluntly, Jason, after 60 surgeries, 80 broken bones, 100 concussions, 15 seizures. Last 2 seizures had me in a coma for 72 and 96 hours. I retired in 97. By 1999, I already started getting scripted for north of 900 milligrams of OxyContin a day, Adderalls, 5-Ants. So to spend most, I'm not proud to say this, Jason, but most of this century, 3 decades, not just myself on all of these pills, but in 2000, I was 37 years old, and as a Mr. Mom, my ex-wife and my daughter was also scripted for 100 milligrams of Adderall myself. So between her, my daughter, and me, it was almost a couple-decade issue of trying to figure out healthy ways to get off of those type things. So to sit here before you being told again you have 5 years left of cognitive brain function 7 years ago and not being able to enunciate or articulate, communicate multiple syllable words. And as a guy who's trying to pretend I'm extroverted and cool, but deep down, Jason, I'm introverted and on the spectrum, and autism runs in our family. So now these are type things that men in the football world that grow up in Youngstown, Ohio, in a steelworker family, it's not what men talk about. Men aren't supposed to have feelings and anxiety and self-doubt and depression type things. So it's almost now I talk about that to men and ex-teammates about the ability to be honest with yourself and honest with the people around you and to try some things that maybe your father, my father, growing up in Youngstown, Ohio, who I love so much, but really the breakfast of champions isn't kielbasa, pierogi, steak, and a Jack Daniels for breakfast. Okay, that's why the Kosar men die at 65. Okay, I want to be there for my 4 children. So now it's being able to show some healthy options and then also be able to show that men are able to have a celery, carrot, vegetable juice in the morning, and you're not a bad word.
Bernie Kosar is our guest. So you talk about these things. Do you look back fondly on your career and playing and knowing the toll that it took on your body and your brain? Is it still something you look back fondly on of your time playing in the NFL?
So, Jason, absolutely. The short answer is yes. And so many people ask me that, and they're like, oh, you got to regret it. And part of me, and I don't say this to be funny, I don't say it to be a martyr, but and not to be over-religious with you, but I have a high spirituality to me, and I so believe in a God or a spirituality that has you going through things for a reason. And I don't think there's no way I would have been able to figure out how to cognitively overcome these issues from a holistic functional medicine standpoint if I didn't get all those injuries. So as a guy who I want you to think, and I want all the people in Kansas City to think I'm a massively athletic guy, but I got my first major broken arm at Arrowhead Stadium in 1988. And as a 5'5", 40 running quarterback who could barely lift a $185, okay, the issues of health and wellness were a massive challenge for me.
Do you remember that play as to what happened on that play there in Arrowhead Stadium?
Oh, God, yes. Ross, the strong safety, came off the corner.
Kevin Ross.
And Kevin got it and got my elbow. My hand stopped, but my elbow kept going. And back in those days, you weren't able to really go into the locker room afterwards. So played a little bit longer and then stayed on the sideline so that happened in the first quarter at about 1:15. I didn't get a chance to shower and and clean it up till like 5 o'clock. So you wonder why I have staph infection, and that's as straight as my right arm goes right now. Literally, that's how far off.
Wow.
It is.
I mean, did that affect the rest of your career in throwing? Did it ever feel like the same that it did when you were at Miami or early on at Cleveland?
So I back at that age, and this is part of the truth serum that I recommend to men and people as in life, but especially as we age out. At 61, that absolutely did affect me.
Yeah.
That kid who, was 30 years old back then or 28, no, he didn't want to admit it. And I wasn't lying to the people, but I was really lying to myself.
Interesting.
Yeah. What you believe, I really believe you should, in your thoughts, you could create positiveness and good beliefs and outcomes with that. So I was trying to talk myself into it, but obviously I was wrong.
Bernie Kosar is our guest. When I grew up in Kansas City, and I wasn't around for the 60s and 70s and just a small child in the 80s, the first coach that was my coach for the Chiefs was Marty Schottenheimer. What was it like for you as a quarterback to play for Marty on some of those great Cleveland teams that unfortunately didn't make it as far as you guys would have hoped?
Yeah, Jason, so thank you so much for bringing that up. I love Marty Schottenheimer, and we were just talking before we went on air with some of the people about Brian Schottenheimer, so good shout out.
Yeah.
Congrats being the Cowboys head coach and growing up with him at training camp in the days when me and Marty and Brian was the little boy out there, and him going on to be a quarterback and now, an offensive coordinator, now a head coach and that. And I was saying this, and I'm not saying this to be good. And for the fans of Kansas City, just like our fans of Cleveland, and I was remiss, and I apologize to this, and as a brainwashed Catholic, you can go to confession and get absolution. I would do redo over, and what I have evolved into my game of football, when I absolutely believe that football now is getting more towards some of the stuff Marty did. And I know we called it Marty Ball in Cleveland. We called it Marty Ball in Kansas City. One of the all-time winningest regular season coaches, and had some stuff in some tough games that's well documented. But what he was able to do in running the ball and the toughness and physicalness and his attention to detail and his discipline and preparation is a lesson for all of us. And in this part of my life as an old man now, okay, that discipline, structure, and preparation that he taught is invaluable. When we were playing, I wish I'd have known it better, and it's absolutely life-saving, and it's been one of the impetuses for me to save myself and my children, and to be able to spread this message now with that. And what he's doing in the running game and what he's doing in the play-action game, you're going to see more of it. And one of the things that we're struggling with in Cleveland is we could use more of that type toughness.
Yeah.
And that's what I am, again, throwing in a Cleveland shout out is Kareem Hunt. He brings a toughness. That's a Marty Schottenheimer type guy. That's a toughness like that he brings. Travis Kelce and that Cleveland Heights toughness. That's a Marty Schottenheimer personality. That's DNA there, and I really love and I'm proud of that. And, as we're talking, and I mentioned Travis and stuff and our Cleveland stuff, the work he does, and for the people listening and talking in Kansas City, Operation Breakthrough, and what has been piloted and developed in Kansas City, and Travis Kelce and what he does with his foundation and what Mary and the Kelsey family do with Operation Breakthrough in terms of educating our youth, and yes, in terms of certifications and some of the things they do, but some of the stuff they're doing cutting edge with robotics and technology. God bless. It's a model. They're a model for people on the field and off the field. What they're doing in the community, what the Chiefs, what Travis is doing, hats off to them.
Yeah, Bernie Kosar is our guest, and you're a through and through, dyed-in-the-wool Cleveland, Ohio guy. And looking back on the time, when we look back over history, it's always interesting, sort of like if this thing changed or if that thing changed, what the course of history could be. But what do you think it would have meant for that area if 86 or 87 came through to get back to a Super Bowl and win it for Cleveland?
No question. It would have been an incredibly bigger emotional boost for it. That was a tough time. That's actually one of the reasons I wanted to go back to graduate early and go back to Cleveland. We're steel workers. We're lower demographic, hourly steel workers, me and my family from Ohio. The mills were dissipating. The manufacturing jobs were gone, almost like some of the stuff we're hearing in today's society. So being able to somehow, some way, the Jimmy Johnson line, bring back some type of distraction, bluntly, from the sadness or toughness of your daily life would have been something incredibly more special to do. But I don't say it from I guess I'm a little disappointed for sure at the time from it, but almost like I had said earlier, of the spirituality of I was supposed to get hurt and have some of those issues that I talked about, so I could come out the other side. And I wouldn't have learned all this health and wellness stuff if I wouldn't have gone through that. I would prefer not to be pained, to have to learn life's lessons, but I don't know, and maybe it's me just trying to justify it, but is that pain some type of life lesson that me or us have to learn through that? I think we've been pained enough, and last season's outcome with 3 wins, as you Chiefs fans are getting ready for the Super Bowl, and we were reflecting on the second pick of the draft. There's a little difference right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Bernie Kosar is our guest. What did it mean to you that you mentioned Jimmy Johnson? What did it mean to you to go out on the field and take the snap in the Super Bowl, the final snap of that game, to be on the field and do that? What did that mean to you for him to put you in the game there?
So I was talking to Coach Johnson this week, and I'm super proud as I get older now to be one of the only guys to have played with Coach Johnson 3 times at the U.
Yeah.
Cowboys getting a Super Bowl and then finishing our career with the Miami Dolphins. So Jimmy's has a core part of my life. That statement, somehow, some way. That was what he said to us every time. After the Our Father, after the prayer, somehow, some way, figure out a way to make a play and go out there and win today. Well, that was for a football game, and that still resonates in my DNA. So when I'm on the operating table, when I'm having mid-brain paralysis, and I'm not able to talk, or that I feel like I'm in immense pain where I have to want to take 10 pain pills, or I'm massively depressed and too tired and I don't want to get out of bed, I think of Jimmy Johnson saying, somehow, some way, make a play. Somehow, some way, I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to make a difference today. And Howard Schnellenberger had the statements to me, and had great coaches. Howard Schnellenberger, Jimmy Johnson, Don Shula, Marty Schottenheimer, Bill Belichick. And Howard Schnellenberger used to say that every day you never stay the same. You get better or you get worse. So when you get out of bed in the morning, I say, I'm getting better, okay, because you can't stay the same. And those type of statements from my coaches, Marty had the idea, the gleam. Seeing, and I still, it sounded hokey as a little kid, but now as a guy setting goals, putting goals up there that are super high, like a little boy wanting to be the Super Bowl quarterback, and we're getting long-winded. Yeah, walking off the field with that Super Bowl, and because Jimmy Johnson let you come out and play that, and getting a monkey off my chest in the NFC Championship game, get a chance to beat the 49ers in a meaningful way after having such a disruptive 3 AFC Championship games. against John Elway. As an old man, I'm just now starting to really be reflective and enjoy it, Jason.
Bernie Kosar is our guest. What do you think happens this weekend? Do you have a rooting interest one side or another? Maybe for Travis with the and Kareem with the Cleveland connection with the Chiefs going for the three-peat?
Yeah, so I want to give you a long-winded, articulate answer. The simple answer is heck yes, the Chiefs. I'm on now. So when the first time it was the Chiefs Eagles, okay, I was conflicted in Cleveland because Kareem wasn't on the team, and I had both Kelseys, okay, with Travis and Jason. But now Kareem's on the team, Jason's retired. I got no problem. I love Mary and Operation Breakthrough. Okay, in Kansas City, go Travis, go.
Bernie Kosar, that is awesome, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and telling your story about what's going on in your life. Thank you so much for being
You matter.
There you go. You matter. That's he held up the U, by the way.
Yeah,
the
you matter. And I do that not just because of the University of Miami, but we're all trying to find our niche in life.
Yeah.
And self-confidence and self-esteem is so important. And telling people that they matter is really important to they're believing in themselves so that they can go out, enjoy their day, and be productive, positive people.
Wow, it's inspiring. Bernie Kosar is our guest. Bernie, thank you so much for the time. Enjoy your time here, and look forward to catching up down the road.
Thanks, bro. Thank you, man.
Absolutely. There's Bernie Kosar. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. he honestly, before he went on the air, he was having fun with it and just like laughing about the whole thing and like how and where his life is. He said, it used to be that if I was here 20 years ago, I would have I'd have about 35, 40 pills in my pocket, and I'd already have 20 in me at this point. And he was like, it's just where I was to where I am now, and dealing with the pain and everything, and trying to overcome that. That's I don't know. I can't imagine what how painful life is to have 80 different surgeries. Just like. And that many concussions, no clue. But I loved hearing him talk about his time with Marty Schottenheimer and what it meant to play for that tough style of Marty Schottenheimer. And all in on the Chiefs, baby. You got Travis Kelce, you got Kareem Hunt, all in on the Chiefs. That means everybody has selected the Kansas City Chiefs so far except Michelle Beadle, which is perfectly fine, and as she said a little bit earlier, like that's fine. I'll be on that side. But everybody has selected the Kansas City Chiefs to win. Well, you know what? Cynthia was kind of in the middle, and it wasn't that she was teetering one way or another. The model picked the Eagles to win by 1, or really fractions. It wasn't a full point. It was decimals is the difference. But she said her heart is saying the Chiefs will win and they will three-peat. So do we count that? I mean, it's kind of a half. I don't know, a half. So I'll split that into Cynthia and then Cynthia's algorithm. I'll split that in two. So I'm going to put Cynthia's algorithm under Philadelphia and Cynthia under the Chiefs. So that would put it at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 selections for the Chiefs and 2 for the Eagles, one of them being Michelle Beadle, the other one being Cynthia Freeland's algorithm. So there you go. We certainly appreciate all the guests that we've had here on Radio Row here in New Orleans, and we continue our coverage. It is presented by Xfinity, Shamrock Roofing and Construction, The Big Biscuit, and Subaru of Olathe. So looking forward to whoever may stop by. I think we're going to talk with Kimmy Checks here pretty soon of the NFL Network. She was one of the hosts of opening night on Monday night on NFL Network. That craziness that's just all over the place and has become quite the spectacle, the scene, the event on Monday night, instead of it just being media day, where all throughout the day for hours on end you would see the different people dressed up in the wedding dresses and all of that stuff that we've seen of years past. But now it is a made for TV event with the NFL Network and opening night for the NFL, and we've seen this a number of times now with the Kansas City Chiefs being a part of it. Now it is 4 times. 5 in 6 years, 3 straight that they will be going for. And joined now is, people that she's very familiar with the Kansas City Chiefs.
I am.
And we are very familiar with her. Kimmy Checks. It is from NFL Network and Paseo Zone.
Hey.
Kimmy Checks.
I love that. You know the Paseo of it
right.
all as well. Yeah,
My mom went to Paseo. It's
Kansas
all good.
City girl through and through. Go
Absolutely.
Paseo Pirates, baby.
Love it. Yes, absolutely. Kimmy Checks is our guest. This is I've wondered this from your perspective, because it's so easy being from Kansas City and to fully embrace the Chiefs and how amazing the dynasty has been and how much fun it's been for the city.
Yeah.
But from a national standpoint, when you are supposed to be covering 32 teams and the entire league, how is it to sort of embrace and love what you went through as a fan, as a kid growing up, knowing how tough it was to enjoy now the dynasty, while supposed to be in Kimmy Checks at the NFL Network?
That's a really incredible question. And, I think NFL Network is so great in understanding, yes, we love all 32, but they do kind of encourage our own flair and flavor for the teams that we love so much as well. And if anything, I think, I've been able to use it to our advantage and to my advantage, because to have a close relationship with an organization that is on the path of history is really, really special. And knowing that, I'm not a fair weather fan, I'm not a bandwagon fan, I am raised Kansas City Chiefs. We've had season tickets since I was a little girl. I grew up through the generations and the days where we lost every single year to Denver and, Peyton Manning, and we just like hated ourselves to now. And, I think it's really special to be a part of that. And it's hard at times to try to be unbiased, and I will never pick against the Chiefs, but it's because we're also great. And I know the heartbeat of that team, and it's really easy to continue to root for them and hopefully give people a different perspective so that we can stop the narrative of the Chiefs fatigue and instead respect that this is a team that's consistently so great.
It's CDS. It's Chiefs derangement syndrome. That's
I like
taken
that.
over
I've
the
not
country.
heard that. You've coined that now.
Yes,
I got to write
yes.
that down. That's
Thank
great.
You. Chiefs derangement syndrome has taken over the country. It is unbelievable. And now you've got like opening night that you hosted at NFL Network. It's an opportunity. Like I love opening night because I get to go around to the players that aren't on the podium and talk to some of the players that are, further down the 53-man roster and talk to them about their story, which is great. And then you've got the main stars at the podium. And then you got some people that are there just to sort of make a name for themselves, to ask Patrick Mahomes about a Christmas card and ask Taylor Swift about, or Travis Kelce about Taylor Swift or, roughing the passer penalties. Like, it's hard to weed those people out. Mm-hmm. But, there's the pro and the con, I guess, of that. But that's sort of like, I'm going to make a name for myself and do this because I know that everybody, there's so many people online that feel like this conspiracy is real or it's rigged or just, I don't know, mouth breathers that are out there.
It's crazy. And, I saw and appreciated that, the officiating crews came out yesterday and were like, if you think 100 and however many, officials we have, 118, guys are all colluding for this one team and, one officiating crew will just see a team twice in a season. Like, if you think all of us are colluding together, that's insane. But, the Chiefs have found a way to win football games in close situations. And, even looking back to the Super Bowl last year against the 49ers in Vegas, when you look at overtime and the 49ers, their decision of who wants to have the ball, they want the ball second, they want to give Kansas City a chance to score for, like, all of that. It's like, no, Kansas City prepares for those scenarios, which is why that there is success there. And to, just blame it all on officiating or this large conspiracy is, I think, disrespectful to the hard work of these guys overall.
I think they're also aware of that. I don't think they'll say anything before the game. But after the game, they may, if they win on Sunday, they may let some things off their chest about what's going on.
Understandably so.
It's such out of context when it's like people present the here are the penalty numbers in the playoffs that are less than in the regular season, but then don't bring up that the Chiefs commit half the turnovers. They turn the ball over half the time in the postseason over these last 4 years than they do in the regular season. So we talk about, well, they don't commit it. They're not called for as many penalties, and they don't turn the ball over. So maybe they're just more disciplined. And maybe kind of the Chiefs, how they are now, Kimmy, is can we get through the regular season so we can get to the time where now we're ready to go and play? This is what we play for, is January and February.
That's the thing. I think they play their best football at the end of the season, and I think that can be really frustrating for a lot of people, and the fact that they're able to stay really healthy, or guys who got injured early on in the season are able to get back to health to come back, in January and February. But it's a part of the magic. It is what it is, Haters beware.
That's exactly. We had Clark Hunt on yesterday, and I joked with him. I said, Clark, you got to take me into these owners meetings. What was it like to convince the league and the other owners to rig it for you guys and the Chiefs?
I'm sure he got a good giggle out of that one.
And he said, well, it was very nice of them to come together and say that it's our turn, that we can go.
Yeah, after all of these years, it's on us now. We'll just take over.
Didn't expect the other owners to be so obliged and allowing us to win like that. He had some fun with it, which was great.
That's great.
Because they have become the villains, but embrace it. And I'm not going to, living through it, you've lived through it, of the bad times, that it's just, you know what, embrace it, enjoy it, because I don't know when the next time they'll get back to the Super Bowl, except for next year in San Francisco. They'll probably get back again.
You know what's ironic when you're like, let's just embrace it, let's let it roll. It's like, we're in New Orleans, let the good times roll.
Exactly.
Like, this is exactly it. So maybe this is, all a part of the large conspiracy for Kansas
That's right.
City.
Is it, as you you get to know some of the players as well, is it different as being like a fan, like people in Kansas City that are fans of the Chiefs and know the players from afar? Does it change sort of your perspective when you watch or root or talk about the game if you start to develop a relation? I know Patrick Mahomes, or I know Travis Kelce. I've had these conversations with them. I know what's like behind the scenes and family part of their life. Does it change your perspective as a fan?
It has, and if anything, it makes me like more a fan because, and I genuinely think it's set from the top down, from Clark Hunt, from Mark Donovan, from Andy, from Brett. Like, there's a level of respect that our players operate with that is incredible. And, to be fully transparent, I don't have as close of a relationship, with players from other teams because I've not been as exposed to them. But being as exposed to them, exposure means you get to see the good and you get to see the bad. And 10 out of 10 times, it's always been the good. And knowing how, kind the guys are to me and knowing, how willing they are to sit down with us in the preseason and have conversations about what this year's team looks like and be really transparent. And, all of that just adds to my level of respect and the fact that they remember. Because, how many media people talk to them, on a season's basis? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. But at opening night the other night, it's like – it's so funny. I went in for a handshake with Patrick because as many times as I've spoken to him, it's like, God knows if he remembers me. He's like, Kimmy, hi, and gives me a hug. Travis gives a big hug. Chris gives a huge hug. And it's just, these are guys who are so kind. And as much as we pour into them and want to suck knowledge from them, they remember us and they remember that there are media who are rooting for them and want to dig into the stories because we know how magical they are. And I think they appreciate that too.
I have a feeling Chris hugs a lot of people.
He just seems like a hugger. The nicest guy.
Yeah, he seems like a hugger.
Just 10 out of 10. Nice. It's crazy because he's so nice and then just such a badass on the field and so dominant.
That is right.
But I like it. It's on a flip of a dime, he can switch.
Yes.
But they're all incredible guys.
Exactly right. How do you think Sunday goes for this team?
I think it's going to be a dogfight.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an absolute dogfight. I think both teams are going to dial up things we've not seen, which is not new. But I think it's going to be one in the trenches. I don't necessarily see it being a high-scoring game, which I know a lot of people may like, but I actually think that makes it even more fun. It's it is going to be tooth and nail. Whoever plays the most flawless 60 minutes of football is going to win. It's limiting mistakes. It's limiting self-inflicted wounds, and whatever team can do that the best is the team that's going to win. It's going to be really damn good.
Do you have a selection?
Kansas City Chiefs.
Of course. I know that. I already wrote it down beforehand.
Because
you never know.
You assumed. You guessed.
Yes. I mean, because it's Kimmy.
It's
Kimmy.
I can't pick against the Chiefs, but also because I truly believe in what this is. And I think, it's interesting. The guys won't talk about the three-peat. It's not in their head at all, but they want to win.
Yeah.
And I think, as much as they don't listen to what's going on and all the chatter during the season, I think they do pay a little bit of attention. I think there's some guys with some chips on their shoulder that say, you know what, why don't we show them, who we really are and put this noise to bed.
And it's interesting, you can sort of compartmentalize because, talking to the players, like Justin Watson this morning, talking with him, and he's like, the only time we talk about three-peat is when we're asked about it.
Yeah,
with the media.
you guys. He's
Nobody inside ever mentions it or talks about it at all. We talk about it only when we're asked about it here.
I love it.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Kimmy, thank you so much for stopping
by.
Big fan.
Me.
Congratulations on all the success
and
the, being a new mom as well. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Everything good there?
Everything's
right?
so good.
Sorry
it's
to
funny.
pry.
It's no, this is my week to get away from my family and sleep, right?
Yeah, right.
But it's no, it's Super Bowl. I don't sleep at all. We're busy running around.
That's exactly right.
No,
honey, if you're listening, see, Kimmy can attest. I'm working.
You're working. It's really hard.
I promise you, I'm
very
working.
Hard work.
The food is gross. I'm not enjoying
fun.
the food.
There's bad music.
Gross.
It's not a crazy, amazing, magical, incredible city.
My boss dragged me to that party last night.
I know.
Gross.
It's hard. It's so hard.
I know.
It's so
absolutely.
hard. But yes, raising two young Chiefs fans now, which is great.
That is great. Yeah, I've got a 9-year-old who knows nothing but success in his life.
Lucky.
And,
lucky.
And 2 years ago, I had to ground him for 2 weeks because he asked me during the season, who are they playing in the Super Bowl this year?
You're like, it doesn't work that way.
I said, you're grounded. You don't know what it was like. You don't know what it was like growing up, okay? We were just wondering
Spoiled with riches at 9 years old.
Could we make a wild card?
That is.
Could we make a wild card game? Come on. Kimmy, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you so much. As always, go Chiefs. Go Kansas City, too.
Absolutely. Kimmy checks NFL Network. Paseo in the house. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. Ranch venue, Adams Toyota Lee Summit, Made in KC, and McGregor's Butcher and Bistro. Had a chance earlier today at the Chiefs media availability when Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes were talking with the assembled media. Get a chance to go around to different players and discuss different things with them, as I told in talking with Kimmy there about talking with Justin Watson on opening night. Sat down for a few minutes with Nico Remigio, who has become an interesting story over the last month or so, and nationally, and people nationally talking about Pat McAfee having a segment about Nico Remigio after he returns the punt against the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship game the week after the kickoff return. So here's that conversation I had earlier today with Nico Remigio.
So I guess tell me what this last month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks have been like for you.
It's been a blessing. It's been a blessing. A long time coming. And, I'm still taking it in, really.
Yeah. What's it been like for family, friends, and reaching out, back-to-back games in the playoffs? You have a big play, and you're a big part of it. You're not just on the team, but you're a big part, a contributor that's helped get this team to this point.
Yeah, it still doesn't feel real. But with that, I will say that, I've prepared for this moment. God has prepared me for this moment, and I'm full steam ahead, really, with it. But it's been amazing, for my family, my friends, my loved ones. They've seen the entire journey, and they've really stuck with me and supported me the entire way. And I think to really have it all come together, I don't know if it's really sank in for them yet either. So, yeah.
What's it like? Did you always sort of have a knack in returning of sort of seeing maybe the holes opening up before they open up in certain lanes? Was that just something that was natural? Is that honed throughout the years? How do you get to the point to where you're able to see some things the way that you are?
I feel like I've always been a pretty natural ball carrier. Obviously a lot of development over the years and to really make it all come together. But, I knew as soon as I got to college that special teams was going to be a huge part of my career. And it was actually the first way I was able to get on the field my freshman year at Cal. I went out there and I started punt returning and then, started doing the kick returns and then started to gain a role on offense. And I loved it. And so I really made that a core piece in a core skill set that I continue to work on and develop. And, to see it really all come together for me, standing here today, it's like, man, we've come a long way. So.
Yeah. As a punt returner, though, I have no idea what it would be like with that ball hanging in the air and knowing that there are grown men running as fast as they can, hoping to time it up perfectly that you touch the ball and they take you out. Yeah. How can you focus on the ball knowing that that's what's happening out of your sight?
Right. Well, I think first things first, my approach as a returner is just to have no fear. And I have no fear. I have a little mantra that I say, and I say, no fear, no mind. And so it's really going out there with an empty mind and just functioning on muscle memory at that point. And you're only able to achieve that through your preparation throughout the week, through your preparation throughout the year, getting comfortable back there, catching punts. And like you said, the margin for error is so slim. So, but when you prepare for anything, I don't think there's any moment that's too big. And so you pair the preparation with having no fear back there, that's how I really am able to do it.
Do you hear this stuff outside during training camp that you're like a fan favorite and people are hoping you make the team? Do you hear that stuff, or does family reach out and tell you that stuff? Can you feel sort of the fandom and people rooting for you during training camp to make the team?
Yeah, I hear it. But again, I'm my biggest critic, and so sometimes that noise is not the most productive for me, just because you keep hearing about how great you are and all these people are rooting for you. That type of stuff can kind of derail you from what your true goals are and what your true motives are when you approach each and every day. So, I definitely appreciate it. I definitely love the support. And, ultimately I just thank the fans of Kansas City for believing in me.
How much is your heritage a part of your game and what you take out there on the field?
Yeah, it's the biggest driver The biggest motivation for me, you know, there's not a lot of Filipinos just at this level, period, that are doing it, and you know, really just it's a privilege to be able to represent them, but even more so, just showing, you know, mixed Filipino kids like myself that, man, at one point I was that kid looking up to somebody, you know, like the Hines Wards and, you know, the other mixed guys that were out there, you know, shorter stature receivers that were told that they weren't going to be able to make it to this level, and just reminding those kids that they can do it. Yeah. And so that's really the biggest thing for me. But, you know, to be able to represent that flag, represent my culture, represent my last name, represent my community, you know, it's everything to me.
Yeah. What's it going to be like on Sunday? Because last year, you know, get a ring, but a little different moment this year. So what's it going to be like out there on the field, wearing the pads, waiting for the kick or the punt to come your way?
Yeah, it's a dream come true. But at the end of the day, I'm approaching it just like it's any other game. Because at the end of the day, it's another game that we've got to win. Regardless of what the circumstances are or whatnot, the fundamentals don't change. The game plan doesn't change. You're not trying to do anything that's extraordinary or anything like that. You just got to do exactly what you've been preparing for and be yourself. And that's really how I'm approaching it.
Good luck on Sunday.
Thank you.
All right, there's Nico Remigio, and he's one of 7 players of Filipino descent in the NFL right now. Cameron Bynum with the Vikings, Josh Jacobs, Josevich with the Bengals, Tyler Algier, Keith Ishmael, and Zaire Barnes, along with Nico Remigio there of being of Filipino descent. And he did start to, you couldn't see it obviously through the radio, but he did start to get emotional when he was talking about, you know, his heritage, when he stopped and was talking about like what it means. And then when he transitioned to talk about what it means for, you know, young kids out there that are like him of Asian descent are told you're too small or you can't do this or you can't, like the eyes started to well up a little bit. And I just wonder at that point, is he thinking about himself in that moment of looking up to other players and what he now can represent to those kids that are out there that you know, maybe are told you can't play football because you're too small. Because Nico Remigio certainly proving that he is not too small, and he came up big against the Texans and against the Buffalo Bills. We will take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling more zone next. Hey, have you played Pick 6 from DraftKings? If not, you better get on it because it's Super Bowl 50. Biscuit and Subaru of Olathe. On opening night, we didn't get a chance to play this yesterday. I wanted to. And we haven't had a chance to play it today. It was a fun conversation. It's a quick one, about 4 minutes or so, in getting a chance to talk with Steve Spagnuolo in a little one-on-one on Monday night at opening night. And always fun to sit down with Steve Spagnuolo to pick his brain and to talk about the pressures and the mad scientists and all of that stuff. So here's the conversation with Steve Spagnuolo.
Yeah, listen, I thought the day we played him in that last Super Bowl, he was on fire. I thought he was terrific. Running the football, scrambling, the passes that he threw, especially to his tight end, were perfect. And if he plays like that again, it's going to be really hard for us again. They scored 35 points, which was hard on us. If we can find a way to hopefully slow him down a little bit, not allow those explosive plays, that's the best chance we got to win this game. Yeah, you got it.
When you think of some of these pressures and these blitzes, is there like an epiphany or something like that happens when you come? Because it feels like it's like a mad scientist is the way that it's being described, or at least made out to seem from the outside.
Yeah, listen, I get too much credit. It's a group effort when we're in the middle of the game planning, all the assistant coaches, and somebody will come up with a good idea, and we'll roll with it. And then the next part of that is that the players embrace it and then execute it on Sunday. So we've been fortunate where we got pretty intelligent players and we can be multiple, and that they're willing in those situations to do it right. It happened to work on that one play. I wish we'd have played better on some of the other ones so they didn't have 29 points, but I mean, it helped us get a win, which is the important thing.
How often do players come up with ideas of different pressures? And
no,
blitzes?
that does happen. I mean, these guys we got a smart group of football players, and they'll have a wrinkle. Nick Bolton's great at it. And Nick will make suggestions during the game while we're over there on the sideline. He made one this past game. We didn't get a chance to do it. But I got a lot of listen, I'm always encouraging those guys. They're the ones in the middle of the battle.
Are there any like bad ideas? You're like, all right, just go away with that. Come on, man.
You don't call them bad ideas. You just take them, and then you just say, I don't think I'm going to call that one.
We're not going to blitz.
That would be a hard one.
You would like to do that, though. One time, right?
Just one time.
Would you one time blitz?
I did it one time in a practice once in college, just for the heck of it, and brought everybody.
Did it work?
Nah, the quarterback threw it away and completed it.
He threw it away, so it kind of worked then. If
he completed it.
Oh, he completed it.
But it was practice. So
yes, I thought maybe you threw it away. So that 4th and 5, though, did that work exactly as you thought? What was that supposed to look like in your mind?
No, our guys executed it really well, and we got the right look. It just happened to work that. It doesn't always work that way. And now I will say this on that play. I thought Josh Allen, for him to get the ball down the field as far as he did, with the pressure he had, I thought was unbelievable. And then they almost made a catch. Could have went the other way, too. So
one of the more underrated parts of that was George Karlaftis. Not only the pressure, but he hits Josh Allen, and he immediately lets go and pulls up. He said earlier, we talked to him tonight, he said, I wasn't going to be the reason why they got a first down.
Yeah, listen, we talk about that all the time, especially on the night before the game on Saturday, that the way the league is, with the rules the way they are, you hate to have a really good play like that get nullified because you landed on. But our guys work at it, and they do a really good job.
Is there a comparison between Josh and Jalen in the way they play? Or just because they run more doesn't mean they're
a little bit different. Both elite guys, and this is going to be a big challenge.
How are you guys such a good tackling team? So these are the two best tackling teams in the league that are facing off on Sunday.
Listen, our assistant, that goes back to our coaches, and they're the ones that have got the hands-on. We're working on it all the time. We never overlook that in the course of a week.
All right, there you go. There's Steve Spagnuolo and the getting ready for the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday as we continue to wrap things up here from the third day of our coverage on Radio Row, presented by the CW Farm and Ranch Venue, Adams Toyota Lee Summit, Made in KC, and McGregor's Butcher and Bistro. But yeah, so these different types of blitzes and schemes and things like that they throw out there and just they perfect it. I liked when he talked about George Karlaftis not going to be the reason why they get a penalty or gets a first down. He's like, yeah, well, we coach that. Yeah, we get less penalties because we coach it. All right? It's an emphasis. We're a smarter team. I know that's not what he was saying, but I'll say it for him. We're a smarter team. We execute better in the playoffs. The moment isn't too big. we can keep our heads while everything is going on live around us. So appreciate that from Steve Spagnuolo. We will hand it over to the program with Soren Petro. That comes up next.